Here.
Volunteer.
Here. Thank you. At this time, I'll open for limited public comment. Hearing none, we'll close that. Motion to approve the agenda or any additions anybody from the board has? Gordy?
I'd like to add a item under new business. It's number 5, discussion on salary review.
That's the new budget salary. Anybody else have anything? Anybody from the audience? We don't often ask that, but we should. Hearing none, then I entertain a motion to approve the agenda with an addition of item number 5. Wording?
Second.
Second of White.
LaPointe. It was
Switch it around.
LaPointe.
Made it. White.
White made it, I thought.
White made it.
White made it. Yes.
We both did it.
Yeah.
Must be our ears.
It must be. The echo on this side.
Watch us. Thank you, guys. Okay. Acquiring does anybody have any conflicts of interest tonight on anything on the agenda? Hearing none. Gordy, I ask you to read the consent calendar, please.
Okay. Consent calendar. The purpose is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together for one board motion, roll call vote, without discussion. The request to remove any item for discussion later in the agenda from any member of the board, staff, or public shall be granted. Under receive and file, A, treasurer's report, B, clerk's revenue expenditure report and balance sheet, C, draft unapproved meeting minutes, planning commission 2/9/15, D, North Flight, January 2015, E, Metro newsletter, January, February 2015, F, Parks and Maintenance report, Tom Henkel, G, zoning report, Lennox. Approval, A, 2015 summer tax collection for Elk Rapids Schools, TBAISD and TCAPS. B, Township Board regular meeting minutes of 2/3/15. And C, accounts payable prepaid of $314,588.76 and current to be approved of $117,949.43. Recommend approval, Kathy Guy, clerk.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the board that wants anything removed from the consent calendar?
I was going to have 2 items removed just for a minute of discussion, but it was primarily around the treasury report. Why don't I go ahead and do that anyway? Just
A, treasurer's report.
A and B in the clerk's report.
Anybody else on the board?
Not necessarily a removal, an addition, if anything. Are we not attaching Metro's annual report? Weren't they supposed to email it to us to attach to the website and have it known to the board?
We did not at this point. We haven't sent it.
We have not got it yet.
No, I haven't. I've got some reading, but I have not put it on the website.
Okay.
Yeah. We will do that the next meeting.
Okay. I just was shocked not to see it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can add it if you want me to go out and get the copy of it. Is there something you want to comment on it, or?
No,
Okay.
no, I just, it was out there, and I thought it should be on the website, and with that, I thought we should add it to the approval, I mean, or acceptance, or however you want to term it.
We actually have not approved that. I don't think before we had to do that. That's-
No, but I mean, we accept it, if
Yeah.
you will,
Yeah.
make note of it.
Okay, we'll do that in the next meeting. Nancy, make sure we make a note of that. That's my mistake. Anybody else on the board have anything? Anybody in the audience? Hearing none, let's have a motion to approve the consent calendar minus receive and file A and B.
Motion to approve consent calendar with the exception of receive and file A and B.
Second,
Support.
Scott? Any other questions? Roll call, please, Nancy.
Guy.
Yes.
LaPointe.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Volunteer.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Items removed. Gordy, we'll let you start with item A.
Uh,
Oh,
If it's treasurer's questions, can we move that to later in the meeting so that
Do
she's
the
here?
clerks first and then the treasurers.
Well, it's really not a question.
We don't need her here to answer.
Yeah, I don't need
Okay.
her here to but I just wanted
Okay.
to make a point, which I think is significant, especially as we get into the budget season. In looking at the treasurer's report, which is, this format has been modified over time and is pretty clear, but something that's really striking on there is the fact that our unrestricted balance is $381,000, so, in the general fund, which is significant. I mean, that's a significant amount of money that's unrestricted. So we're in,
That's actually
interpretation-
more than our 6-month reserves.
well, that's above and beyond the septics and the reserve
All the
and
other
Sailor
stuff.
Park and all the other stuff. I mean, that's money that's not committed, not reserved, not restricted, is available. And to even make that a more meaningful number, a significant number, I went back and looked at the budget report through January. So that represents 7 months or 7/12 of the year. And I also looked at on the revenue side and expense side. And you see a high number like this 381, my thought was, well, are we really flush? Did all the revenue come in already, but we haven't really hit our expenses yet? But if you look at these, our revenue, we've received only 45% of our revenue, so we're in good shape on that. We haven't emptied the coffer, so to speak. If you look at our budget, in just about every department, it's pretty much right on target. So the number, I guess the conclusion is, for the board and for the public, that 381 is a significant number. And we're in really good shape going into the new budget discussions. So I just wanted to bring it up. I did have a minor question for Amy, but I'll catch her at another time.
So are you good with accepting?
Yeah,
that?
I'm good with all these, but just wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report then.
Motion to approve treasurer's report and clerk's report and expenditures report and balance sheet.
You want to do all three? Let's do one at a time,
Yes.
Okay.
please.
Motion to approve treasurer's report.
Second?
Second.
White? Any other questions? Since there's no money to be expended, just a report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Clerk's report. You said the same thing on the clerk's report?
Motion to approve clerk's revenue and expenditures report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
White? I see a pattern. Any questions on that one? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good, okay. Special presentations, we don't have any tonight. First item is Deputy Ken Chubb. And we do have a report in front of you, the board on calls. We got that at the package went out. Yeah, you have it, so thanks, Ken.
February, aside from being exceptionally cold, pretty much on par with the same numbers, 248 calls for service. We had 21 citations issued, 8 criminal arrests. We had 37 traffic crashes, and I think half of those probably happened on Valentine's Day. That blizzard there. Fortunately, I wasn't working that day, but it sounded like what a mess. Everybody stepped up to the plate. We had a Fife Lake car up here taking calls. The Peninsula car was taking calls because it was kind of a state of emergency at that point. So,
Pretty bad.
yeah. Other than that, the roads are greasy. And a little freezing rain today was nice. Slicked up 72 a little bit. So, I don't think anybody got hurt too bad today.
Anything for Deputy? Anybody? Thank you for all your work. Keep up the patrols and stay safe in this weather. Road Commission. Oh, County Commission, I'm sorry. Sorry, Carol. Carol's next? Yes. Mark's last this time. Not quite last, but.
Hello. Okay, no, cheat sheet here. On the subject of the February 14th whiteout blizzard thing, where we were all trapped here in Acme. While I was home, I listened, with lack of anything to do, it sounds silly, but my kids and I listened to Central Dispatch, to the scanner. And I was amazed at how efficient they were, how calm everybody was, and I just think they did a really great job, making sure that everybody got help that they needed on that day, because that was a pretty bad day.
And none of them were hurt while they were
No.
out doing it.
No, they weren't. Let's see what else. I think you're gonna talk about the CPO's contract today. I read it, the one that you have and that you're talking about today, I like that one. I like the calculation of the fees. There may be another one circulating around that's not quite the same. Don't worry. Go through the process, and the commissioners will make sure that we go through the right process as well. What else? Soil erosion, we did make a small decision on soil erosion. We decided to raise the fees to a more acceptable, a more reasonable level. They were actually quite low. Trying to get that department to maybe pay for itself the way building code does. And we also gave Bruce Remay the ability to make the hours flexible for those inspectors. So when they're needed, they work more. When they're not needed, they work less. And we also directed him to advertise for Pete Brewski's job as a part-time soil inspection person. What else? We are looking into having the Commission on Aging and possibly MSU Extension move into the lower level of the county building, which is empty. There's nothing going on down there except a few vending machines. There's a lot of really good space. That the Commission on Aging would actually like to be in that building. That would get them out of the building on Front Street that actually belongs to the city.
So it saves money to the county taxpayers?
Absolutely, because we pay a lot of rent for that building, and it costs a lot to heat that building. It's an older building. It's not set up very well for what Commission on Aging or MSU Extension needs to do. So we're looking into that, seeing what kind of room we have available. It's possible they could both move in there. There's also room at the health department, and the buildings there on Lafreniere for MSU Extension possibly. So we're going to start to look into those things, trying to save a little money there and get out of that city building on Front Street. And that's about it. One on the count.
Any questions for Carol? Tomorrow night is, what is it, Ways and Means tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night is public health and safety.
Public health and safety.
Yes. But we kind of talk about anything and all of them, so
Sometimes.
sometimes things come up that we talk about, so.
Very good.
And
Okay?
Gordy?
any progress on the big issue? Unfunded,
Mention?
No, we have not yet heard back from MERS whether we're gonna be able to get those last two bargaining units out of the defined benefit and into defined contribution. And that will make a big difference to stop the bleeding of the money. And then we'll work on paying it back.
has there been any, there was discussion some time ago with the possibility of bringing some competitors of MERS in to just see if you can get a better,
There was a little discussion, doesn't really
Never went
take away,
anyplace.
it doesn't really take away the obligation that we have,
but if you reduce your costs, it would lessen the obligation.
minimally. Anybody that we have to administer that plan and invest that money charges a similar amount to do that. So, we have not yet investigated that.
Who's going to lead that effort once that happens? Is that, whose committee, chair?
It would be Ways and Means,
Business?
which is Dr. Dan. Yep. So I can tell him to speed it up, looking at
Well, I mean,
that.
there's, a point on the investment side or a point reduction on the administrative cost side is significant
Yes,
over time, so. There may not be anything, but
maybe not.
We
We have the county, I know some of us have been approached, and I can't remember the name of the firm, by another, I think it was Morgan Stanley, saying, we could do this for you too.
Vanguard, Fidelity.
It was Fidelity, actually, who has approached at least myself and a couple of others about, when you think about, if you think about switching, we're here. So, we're not at that point, so.
Good. Any other questions for her? Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Next is a report from the Road Commission, Mark McKellen. Mark?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Well, I'll make it very brief. We have apparently a joint meeting of the County Board of Commissioners and Road Commission on the 12th of March to discuss the finer points of the Cass Ridge crossing and where we go from here in terms of how it's going to be funded. Also, in certain parts of the area, you will, on the road, you'll notice the heaving that's going on out there. Some of it will break apart. So when that happens, in your area, be aware of it and avoid it, or try to, not drive heavily fast over it. There's nothing we can do about that with the frost, the deep frost the way it is. But our guys are going to get out there as soon as they can to fix some of these things. Also, sign that spring is coming, besides looking at the calendar, is the frost laws will be going into effect. And I know there's discussion about the weight limits coming up. And I think we're probably going to be looking at the same issue as we did last year, with quite a deep frost on the roadways, and it could be a longer period of time that we don't allow the heavy vehicles on there. So,
When does that go in place, Mark?
Like
the 15th of the month?
Yeah, it's coming up in the next couple of weeks, Jay, and it's, it really does depend on the weather within about a week or 2 to 10 days in that time frame. But I know they're talking about it, and they'll be out and putting up signs, and there'll be public service announcements about it. Leelanau County Road Commission's already got their PSAs on the radio, and so I think we just got to try to protect and preserve what we have. They're not getting more trucks out there. Of course, that doesn't affect propane trucks, and that's good because people have propane, you know what it's like. So, but if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Is the one road I was on today, Hammond Road, is one that already is having some heaving, right?
Oh, yeah.
So just warn anybody who goes on the new section of Hammond before you get to Keystone. It's a little rough, and you just have to be careful.
I mean, you could have launched a car in the air last year off of a
Right.
couple of those.
Not that bad this year.
Yeah, not as bad, but that was a design flaw. And my understanding is that when they did the undercutting of the road, that they didn't go deep enough and prepare the bed, and they put measures in to do draining off and piping. That's not worked. They're looking at another option again this year to try to figure out if they can do something to affect it. It might be good money thrown after bad at that point. Literally might have to just take that chunk, cut it out, do it properly from the ground, below the ground up, and be done with it. But sometimes in the best engineering designs, and two of the guys that work for us now actually work for the private contractor that did the work. So they know it intimately, but when it comes down to design, you just don't always know what you're going to get, so.
What's the timetable for 31? When is your best guess? when
MDOT project?
Yep.
I don't know, Gordy. I think that, I don't know the drop dead date for that, but I know that they've had some public meetings on this. And I imagine they should be coming up pretty quick with announcements of public meetings to discuss it, the scope of the project, not like what they're gonna do as much as the roadways, 3 and 4 mile, what's gonna happen, push off 5 mile. I do know that it's not gonna be shut down all the way through. There's gonna be a little trickle through, 2 lanes, one side.
North side first, south side second.
Yeah, so, and they're coordinating with the city and they're coordinating with the road commission to determine, the impact that's gonna have, because we're doing some of our projects early and then we won't be doing it on those side arteries at the same time.
Is Elmer's Did they get that, you know, or?
I don't know if they got, I don't know on that contract.
Has not been announced, but I believe they will, because it's what do they call it, a contract bid,
Oh, yeah.
where they have to be, only certain people are certified to do the work, and Elmer's is one of them, and I think they'll get that one.
Safely.
The question will be the paving from Holiday North, who gets that one, has not been announced yet.
Right, and you know, in our market, there are not a lot of providers that can do that, so the truth is, we're down to 2,
Yep.
okay? But it's very interesting in the bid process, how that works, because when I said at the bid opening, Elmer's came in with one bid on Lafrenia Road, and Reese Riley came in with a bid on the same road, same scope of work. And Reese Riley was, I mean, astronomical expense.
Which meant they didn't want to pay.
They didn't have the capacity to do the excavating. They can lay asphalt all day long on straight lines and, you know, that's, you know, some grade. But they would have to third party all the subcontract, all that excavation. And Elmer's, one shop does it all. So they were able to come in much lower. So depending on what it is, if it's just pretty much you know, we're not cutting 12% of the hill away or something like that, you're probably gonna get a better deal on Reese Rally possibly, you know, because they've got the equipment, but.
They actually have very little equipment in our area today.
They mobilize
Other than
all
the
of it.
asphalt haulers.
Right.
Just look, obviously, whatever it is, 3 months can be a mess, it's gonna be a disaster, and just waiting off this whole summer. The escape route 72, when they do, I've never seen construction on a roundabout.
Neither have I.
Okay. I was just curious, is that a huge disruption, or can they put a roundabout in
The
in
plan-
such a way that there isn't a huge disruption to the flow of traffic?
Well, the plan on 72, when you talk about dates, I would say first, the date on the shore road there, 3 Mile to Holiday, is probably gonna end up starting sometime about the end of April. They're trying to let the bid's out for contract right now on 72. That probably kicks off about the middle of April also. But what they're gonna do is put 2 bypass lanes in on 72 from east of the dinner theater a little ways, onto the village land and back out on the road. And the roundabout on the main entrance to the village, they'll be able to do the roundabout and the underpass, but without any traffic on that road. They'll do all of that, the traffic will stay on the 2 lane so it can keep moving through there. That also leaves Lautner 72 open so trucks and traffic can get down Lautner. They'll build all that and then they'll throw the traffic back on the new road up through Lautner. They'll work the Lautner roundabout, all the outside pieces first, so the traffic stays in the center. And then when they're ready for the center, they'll put the traffic kind of on the outside of that and bring it in. So traffic never gets blocked, basically. No flagging is
No flagging
the
at all?
intent, like, you know, like we dealt with last year, no flagging.
But there'll be no flagging, but it'll be nothing but cones. It'll be barrels and cones.
A lot of
And you
stuff.
know that'll be a snarl. Anytime you do work on a state highway, in a tourist area, in the spring, summer, and early fall, we can expect some pretty unhappy folks. But again.
All 1
it's
year,
gonna
there's
be
better than 2 years.
Yeah, all of it, you know. I don't know, you know, on the roundabouts, it's MDOT's favorite thing right now. But I really don't know. I haven't seen any major impact studies or anything that says these are any better than what we've had, but.
Well, the roundabout built at Mesick was built the same way they do here. Elmer's is the only certified person in this area to build them.
I had the pleasure of watching a semi, fully loaded, go right up over top of the roundabout, careen about 18 inches off the ground, and hit on the other side. He couldn't stop. He was familiar with the area, he didn't see the signage, it's not, you know, highly marked, and he had no way to stop, so he just went. So, I tell everybody, you go through a roundabout, you better have 360 vision and be paying
They
attention.
work
So,
well.
there's one in Ann Arbor that is really crazy. I mean, it works,
One
but,
on the N72 raceway.
yeah.
But we'll slow the traffic down quite a bit.
Yeah, so.
Question?
Quick question, Mark, it's great having you here giving these updates. Thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question, The board passed a resolution or motion earlier this year to put snow fences up in our business district, I think, and I see them out there. And obviously, we don't have any snow fences along the big expanse of 31 there. I almost got hit by somebody in whiteout conditions, I think around Valentine's Day. And is that something that would think about in the future?
We worked with the road commission. They didn't get the second pieces in that they were gonna put in time because of
Okay.
snow. Yeah, we think they still need a couple more places we need that, and they've been very willing to work with us on it.
Okay, I wasn't
That's the
sure.
thing. We, you know, the thing is the road commission works with the townships real well. I mean, you guys are here each and every day in the community, you know it. We aren't, as a group, as an entity, we've got a large area to cover, so when they come in with solutions and suggestions and stuff, we like to work with them, so. And hopefully we don't have those situations very often, but they do occur, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item was resource recovery. I don't see Kim Elliott here tonight because he's right. He was going to come and give us a little just speech. But on our website, for those interested, we do have all the information on resource recovery. It's available. He thought it'd be nice, so maybe we'll have him another meeting when he's available. So we'll go on. Correspondence, we have two I just want to bring up. They're in front of you as a board. One was the letter from Lee Kurt at TART thanking us as a township for having Tom plow TART, and so far we will keep that open this year all the time. We might miss a day because of heavy snow, and then we get back in there, so that's a good thing. That's in your package. That's working well. The second is Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks offers, I guess you call it a scholarship, for some training, and Kathy applied for one, got it, and that way it doesn't cost us anything. Basically, other than some mileage and transportation, which is normal. And that's, when does that happen now, Kathy? Not next week, the week after?
The 15th.
15th.
15th through the 20th, it's a 1 week.
So that's what we have for correspondence. Just want to make everybody aware of it. You'll be going.
I'll be done.
Okay, now into no public hearings of new business. The first, Gordy, I believe we'll start with you, is the SADS. We have two resolutions and some other document you're going to talk about, right? And I'll assist you on the one.
Are there really two
There
resolutions?
should be two resolutions. There's an update on the one that we had to do.
They're stapled together, right?
Could be in the original package, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think they are. Are they?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Somebody read these resolutions?
yes,
Yeah.
more than once.
Okay, this is,
They're kind of boring, aren't they?
yeah, this is, I'll have to admit, I put the other 5 or 7 resolutions together. I did not put this one together. This is for bonding, this is for financing. It's actually a working process. And the long and short of it is, because of a better bond rating, we're gonna have the plan is for the county to actually float the bond, and we will pay the debt service. Much, I guess similar to what the septic plant, where the township owns the septic plant, but the county did the bonding. So anyway, so this is kind of a hybrid. These resolutions are kind of a hybrid, and I suspect there's gonna be some changes as we go forward. These have to be cleaned up a bit.
Yeah. Let's talk about the second one first, if you don't mind. Because your pack is stapled together. The second one is, in the middle of it, talks about resolution requesting the county of Grand Traverse to issue bonds for us. So that's one we want to pass tonight. That is giving us, we give that to the county, say, we want you to do this on our behalf. Dean Bott has already had some discussion with Road Commission, had some discussion with county board, and the packages about it. So this is our basic resolution requesting that they do that. It's part of the process we've gone through in others. This is just another step in that format.
And the verbiage in there is the same as was in the other resolutions in terms of what the scope of the special assessment district, the various costs associated with it, the contributions, the cost per property, et cetera. So that's pretty straightforward. So I guess if there's aren't any questions? Any questions on it? What the intent is on this?
Anybody? Need This will be number 8,
Eight.
Nancy, right? Thank you. So we need a motion to accept this first one. This is requesting the county do the bonding for us. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, resolution 2015-8, dated March 3rd, resolution requesting the county of Grand Traverse to issue bonds for the Township of Acme Road project.
Okay.
That's good.
Cotton? Thanks, Jim. Any other questions on that? The Exhibit A on this one is attached to it. It's a dollar exhibit. We've seen that one before, so you know. I think all in favor. Any other questions on it first? I'm not sure. All in favor?
Nope, your resolution says you require a roll call vote.
Oh, it does, then. Roll call, please.
LaPointe,
Yep. We will be spending money this
Scott,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Solinger,
year. Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. The top resolution, I provided the board a change in that, and it's the last paragraph, originally said issue, it now on the change says requested. There is on this resolution, since I handled some of this while Gordy was gone, there's something called a continual disclosure form, and so there is a sample of that called Appendix A. This is a legal form when you do bonding that we have to provide to a government agency. And two parts of it is we tell them, here's our annual audit, we're a solvent corporation, so to speak, and here's our budgeting information. We'll put that on our website. Okay. The bonding agent will report it to the government for us. At the same time, the county has to do this very same thing. So this is just a sample, this Appendix A, of what that form is. Most of us didn't know what it was originally. I want to make sure we had a copy of it so you could all read it. It's a bunch of legal words that says, we're going to report to the government that we're a solvent organization. That's basically what it is.
So this is a sample, this is
This
not,
is just a sample.
because there are some errors. in
Yes,
there.
there'll be a final one that the bonding agent will provide us,
Okay.
okay, as that. Any questions on this one? So that's the change, we don't issue the bonds, we request it. And,
9.
and they will be called Transportation Fund Bonds, Series 2015. We'll work with the road commission. They'll pass an ordinance, agreement to do this on our behalf. The county does that. It's all been kind of discussed. I believe you were aware of that, Mark.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, and I wasn't at the February meeting if it was discussed there, but I knew it was coming, and it's the best opportunity for board, residents.
Helps us all. It helps the
Sure
road
does.
commission because our residents are helping fix some roads. It helps us because they provide some money. So
Down.
we all get some benefit of this.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to approve this.
Motion, go ahead.
Okay, a motion to approve resolution 2015-9 for the SAD.
Guy, you're making the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's just a roll call. I believe White calls for the same thing.
Scott,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Solinger,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
LaPointe,
Yep.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Just a couple, little bit of an update on that
You had some, yeah, other letters.
project. Number one, there's a handout of a letter that was sent to all the property owners within the special assessment district dated January 26th. They'll give you an update of what's going on, what the dates are, et cetera.
They're in front of,
Your packet.
I was gonna say.
they're in front of you tonight. Thank you. Very good.
Okay. So as you see on there, there's a number of steps going forward. The objective is to get this thing out for bid as soon as possible. We have a target of getting back by mid-May, whatever bid responses we get. And as Mark had mentioned, there's probably only 2 people that in this territory that will bid on a project like that, which is not a good situation, especially this year where there's a lot of construction going on. So we're pushing the engineer to get this thing moving as quickly as possible so we can review it, get approved by the road commission, get the thing let. We've got a meeting scheduled for next week for the first phase of the specifications. We'll hopefully approve that, we'll do the second phase of that, and then the final phase, and then release it. And again, that's covered in that letter. Just so everybody knows, and I've talked to Jay, and I've talked to people within the, that were kind of driving the project with the SAD, this thing is a go now. Everyone's committed the money, everything is all set, but there's one big issue facing us. We had to go out and tell the residents within the special assessment district what it was going to cost them before we had a quote in hand. So we took the best guess with contingencies at the high end and said this is what the cost is going to be to each property owner. The concern would be what would happen should Reith Riley and Elmer's come back and say, hey, we can cherry pick this, and just come in and say, with an astronomically high bid, higher than the 15% contingency we put in there, plus the additional $50,000 we held out. So we've got a huge contingency built in, but until we get a quote in hand, we don't have a deal. So that's why we're pushing to get this out to the bidders as soon as possible. So that's one thing you should be aware of. It's been kind of discussed in a roundabout way, but that's the way it's played out. The second thing is, at one of the board meetings, we talked about Audubon and Ground Pine property owners, those that are on the private roads up there. And they are not going to be a part of the special assessment district in that their road is a private road and their homeowners association is responsible for any maintenance. So they're clearly not a part of the SAD. However, and a lot of people pointed this out, they are going to benefit from the SAD because they come down their road, picked on the map, and the last portion of Audubon is a public road, which is part of the SAD. Then they'll make a right turn on Greenwood and travel down Greenwood, which is part of the SAD. So about 2/10 of a mile, they have to travel a public road, which will be within the SAD, for about 2/10 of a mile to get into their conclave up here. So they had agreed, and I had mentioned, that they were going to assess their homeowners an amount of money to make a contribution towards this. Everybody kind of all made sense. However, one of their property owners came out and said, I read the bylaws, that's illegal, I'll sue you if you do it. So they pulled back on that, and I don't blame them. So what they suggested, or we came to a joint agreement, and that's also in front of you, is I drew up a request of voluntary contributions from the residents. So that's in front of you. I'd like to just take a second to take a look at it, and if you agree with it, we'll sign it. We'll have Milt Osgood, the president of the Homeowner Association, sign it, and we'll mail it out to the 58 property owners up there and see what kind of money we can get in contributions. A number of the people up there have, we talked to them directly, we had meetings with them, and they feel very comfortable, and they feel this is more than fair. They do get a benefit, and they're willing to contribute. But it's going to be strictly voluntary.
So just like we did on the shoreline fund, people contribute. We have a line item Kathy's created for us, a SAD, a revenue and expense side of the report that will go in. It's 818, I think you told me. Will be the code, account code, and so we'll be able to track that and see it just like everything else.
So that was disappointing, but we'll see. We'll go
March on.
It wasn't really built into the cost structure. It was kind of a bonus. It would reduce the cost to the individual property owners, but we'll see.
Anything we get above what we've had in any budget item we presented or that resolution we passed tonight, this doesn't show in there. So. Anything else, Gordy?
No, that's about it.
Any questions for Gordy on this issue?
You don't have do we have an issue with sending this out under Acme Township's signature?
We should. It's a project we're supporting,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to track the money, so I think it's appropriate, but does anybody else?
Because we're in charge of the money, if you will, in a roundabout way, I think it's appropriate.
Okay.
We're gonna have to book it and keep track of
We'll probably get that out later this
No, you-
week or next week at the earliest, or the latest.
it. Okay.
Just a quick question.
Mhm.
Gordy, at the, whenever, I think December meeting, there were some residents that wanted to contest this. What is the status of that? They, I guess someone from Lansing was coming up, or how did that,
Is,
what's the status?
as far as I know,
Four or
they,
five?
we gave them the forms that they wanted to contest, not the special assessment district, but their portion. And
Yes.
the example we gave it at the time was, we are gonna be charging on a per parcel basis versus a front footage. If you wanna build a case, that'd be one that typically a person would go for. To simply say, I don't wanna participate, that ship has sailed, but they can do whatever they want. That's up to them, we gave them the forms, gave them the information. Jay and I haven't talked recently, we haven't heard anything back from the state where anybody has filed. I honestly would have been surprised had anybody filed once they read the form, made the $200
Filing fee.
filing fee.
Okay.
But
So-
nothing, no, we've got nothing back. There was
So we're
four,
proceeding, and
Sure.
if anything was to happen, it wouldn't affect the set as a whole, it would be one property contesting something. So
I
it
was just
wouldn't-
curious if maybe they had reconsidered or what the upshot.
We've just heard nothing from any of them. And I checked with Dawn once in a while, because she's the one, if it went to tax tribunal, would let us
Sure.
know that that's happened.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Good question. Thank you, let's move on then. CPO officer, new contract. Carol mentioned it, I put a copy in front of you again tonight because, forgive me, we found a little error, but this is a model contract. All we're approving tonight is the right for Kathy and I to sign the model contract. This is not the final contract. The price in here, I believe, is very close to where it will be on the final contract, but don't know till that's done with the county level. But we have to approve this like we have done on other things with the DPW, where we approve it, other townships approve it, we go sit down with the county and say, here, we all support this one contract, the same for everybody. Once we do, there'll be another one come back to us to say, here's the final contract that really goes in place. We presently have a contract with them, so just wanted you to be aware of this. All we need tonight's a motion for us to sign it as,
The long and short of it, the change to the existing is it's a 5% increase, correct? And that's the long and short.
no, it's
of it.
not, it's not even 5%.
That's what this one says.
Don't believe it is. Hold on, where you going?
Price index or 5% is published annually. That's
Up
what you're
to.
looking at.
Right.
Not to exceed, or the.
Yeah, I don't think that's where we'll end up at,
So much
that was the
price
last
index.
discussion number, but that's being discussed tomorrow night. We did,
Formula is gonna be,
Huh?
I don't know what's gonna be discussed tomorrow night, but the formula is, it has to be sort
Right.
of
and
defined better.
I think we defined in the formula, what we're looking at, a percent or the, is it the consumer price index or the tax rate called? The tax, yeah. Price index, this is our proposal of consumer's price index of 5% as published annually by the state tax commission. So it has, that way we don't get into this negotiation every year. It will go up. So
Right.
that's why I say this is a model, this is not the final. We'll come back to the final, it comes back to the board for approval.
I guess I don't understand that clause. I understand an increase, but to, in a sense, put in an increase that we're going to accept for perpetuity yet.
Well, we don't know that the county will accept that. That was, all the townships got together, and that was kind of our position. That there ought to be some inflationary factor. We would agree it's either 5% or the lesser of the consumer price index or 5% as published. It's the lesser of one or the other.
The thing is,
My question is,
Yeah.
what is the length of the contract that you're talking? If you're talking forever, making an agreement like that, I'm not necessarily comfortable with. If you're talking for 2-5 years, then I could weigh out the options and say that might make sense.
But they always have, within written notice, there is a clause for 90-day buyout of it, so we don't get into that position.
Again, contract that says for the next 2 or 5 years, we're gonna use CPI or 5% increase, you can put numbers to that, and that makes sense to me. To say that with a never to be talked about again, if you will, price on it, that I'm uncomfortable with.
Could-
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Give me some
but
words
can we
on
get
putting
out
it.
90 days notice?
Huh?
Can we void
Yeah.
our entire agreement 90 days
Yeah.
notice?
We
So-
can today and we can under this.
Okay, so that's kind of,
It's a catch-all.
that
Again,
gets you
it's,
get out if you wanna renegotiate.
I mean, I guess it's a double-edged sword, because if fees go up astronomically, we can hold them to it too, but they can get out in 90 days. So I mean,
We
it's,
both have
Yeah.
that right.
you know,
That's why we did, and I think till we, at this point, we want to make sure all the townships are going in the same. We still have to negotiate with the county. The county's aware of, each county, like I sent Carol a copy of ours, so each one's doing that, because we're still not at the final contract. So they'll come back to us and do approve. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and, because I don't entirely understand, you're saying this is not the final contract, but a model, so are you asking for authority to sign an approval of this contract if it were to be the final contract?
No, as a model.
So you don't have authority, you won't have authority to sign?
I
I'm
can't
trying
sign
to
the
figure out
final
what you're asking for from
a
a,
motion that we use this as a model to go into our negotiations.
okay,
There will be a final contract that comes back to us, to the board, for final approval.
okay.
Yeah, we're not, this is not an approval of the end state.
I guess with that being said, I would like to have some idea of what the expectation is for the length of this. I guess is a good way to put it. If it's an annual 5% CPI, if it's a 5-year, and then maybe we'll talk about it again, if it's a 10-year, and we'll
I
talk.
think that they didn't want to have to negotiate it every single year.
I'm comfortable with
And
that.
that was why, and so,
But if you were to
If
say 5 years or 10 years, that I could understand, but forever, I don't necessarily agree with having a township responsible for it.
But the fact we get out in 90 days notice.
you can say, you know what, we're considering not doing this, let's talk about it. And if it doesn't go your way, you can say, well, then we're done in 90 days. If the numbers become skewed, if it becomes whack, if you say now we're paying astronomical amounts, and, you can look at it periodically and evaluate and say, is this still true? And if it's
Again,
not
it's not
true, and
defined.
you don't wanna continue it, you can get out.
I understand all of that, I would like to see something like that in the end product, if you could help that. With that, I understand, and
I think with Carol's knowledge of that, and she's on the county side of that, Glenn and I are kind of doing the township side.
even if it were a 10-year period, that would make sense.
Okay,
But to say forever, that I'm not comfortable with.
that's fair enough, I can bring that up.
Anybody else?
When we talk about
5-10
it,
year
that there
makes
should be a
sense,
time.
but
I see Paul's point, I see your point, because, sometimes with everything going on, we can miss some things, but if something automatically comes back, like to be revisited every 4 years or 5 years, it brings it back without us having to.
And we don't necessarily need to do it every year, but there needs to be some periodic review of the cost.
It comes
Where
back,
it's talked about more than just up CPI,
It
again,
comes
up
back
5%,
Okay. With that, I'll make a note of that, Carol's got it, and I just want to make sure if everybody's fine otherwise, that's what we'll go. All the other townships, I think most of them passed this already. It's pretty much the same format. We actually use this as a model format, so they're not being presented something different. There's a piece in this about that Kingsley won because they want to direct where the police officer works. We don't want to direct that. We think that the sheriff does a great job of doing the day-to-day job, and we do a lousy job as telling them to do it. I mean, really, that's not our forte to do that. So, okay, so I guess if I need a motion just to go ahead and accept this as a model to start with, with your
recommendation,
Yeah.
I'd make that motion.
I support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a little bit like we had to do when we do some of the DPW stuff. You have to start with a model, everybody brings it in, you come back and kind of look at it, so. Okay, next item is border review. we don't normally, I haven't in the past had an alternate board review. And this year, I'm recommending that we appoint an alternate for the board of review, and that's Sarah Lawrence. This way, if somebody's sick, not available, we can continue to have the review with the right number of people and move ahead. And that's what this is about tonight. So I need a motion to accept this. The term would expire, the same as all the other three, December 31st, 2016.
Sarah's willing to take that on?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any other question? And our new, Mr. Frick has been to his training, and so we had our first meeting the other day. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next is a resolution for budget amendment for Metro drivers. Metro came to me, and it's attached to your package, and said, you know, the costs of our drivers going up because of their budget year is different than ours. They'd like us to pick up the budget year, additional amount of money. This year, up to the end of our budget, it's $2,600. So we're going to take, my proposal in this amendment is to take money out of the contingency fund, $2,600, put it in the fire fund, and this is not only changing the budget number, but putting the money actually there. Kathy and I have talked about this. So this would bring them whole on our Metro budget.
Do we pay North Flight direct?
No, we pay Metro. This is a Metro driver, we pay Metro direct. Is that what you're asking me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's how we do it. So I'm proposing we do this. You remember last meeting, we actually talked about where the last year-end Metro budget was short. We as township said if it was too much, we'd make it up. We did. If we don't do this, we'll eventually have to make it up. If they haven't, we'll get the price down. I have looked at our millage. I'll find that real quick here. Will be not yet caught up on millage for the ambulance. Next year we'll be a lot closer. We've done a projection of our revenue at a .3 of a mil, and we'll be bringing in about $88,000 or a little less or a little more next year. Current year we're only bringing about 84, 85. So our growth in taxable base, taxable value, and as new things go in, we're starting to see that come up, and this will eventually cross over where the money coming in will be greater than the actual cost by a minor amount. Now, we don't want too much because then we're overtaxing, but that's just keeping it at the 0.3 of a mil. So I need a motion on this. This would be resolution number 10 to approve this.
Motion to approve resolution 2015-10, budget amendment, Metro Fire EMS.
Support. White? Any questions?
I have one, but I'm trying to figure out
How to
how
say it?
to say it. On the Metro board, basically, we had conversation that in a sense, the service is having troubles getting drivers of their own. Is that a good way of putting it?
For everybody but Acme, but yes.
And so, in a sense, that directly correlates to us having to pay more.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
Okay,
Nothing to do with that.
then I'll refrain and I guess ask that question to Pat later.
Yeah. That has to do with Metro providing them to other ambulance locations where there is a
Ours was built in and what was built in were covered.
Right, other than this amount of money.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
And this
just a
amount isn't
wage
because
increase.
of the issue
No.
that, okay.
Not at all. Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Any other questions on this? We're spending money, so Nancy, a roll call, please.
Did we get a second?
Oh, yes, White.
Okay.
White.
There's two
Thank you.
boys on the-
White,
Yes.
Solinger,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Genema,
Yes.
Yep.
LaPointe, Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Welcome. We added an item 5 to your agenda, salary review. Gordy wants to talk about that, so Gordy.
Okay, it seems like every year prior to the budget, we start talking about salaries, we have competitive salaries in all the areas, et cetera. And I think last year we talked we were gonna do something, review that, and almost a year's gone by and we've done nothing. I think if we're going to make any changes to the salary structure, we need to do it now. And the reason why I think we need to get it in place is if we put, whatever the salary structure that we put in place now will be in effect for next year. Next year will be 16, will be the election. People will be looking to see if they want to run for trustee or supervisor or whatever, and they'll see whatever the salary is at that time, and perhaps make their decision on it. So I think we need to get the proper salary in place this coming fiscal year, starting June, July, so we'll have that in place going forward. If it remains where it is, fine. If it goes up or goes sideways or goes down, that's fine, but I think we need to do that. The salaries have been, I don't think they've really been looked at hard. We took the salaries that were in place pretty much when we took office. And I think the previous board probably did the same at that time.
I don't think we raised salaries or any pay since I've been on the board. And-
Well,
we took it away, but gave it back to
Right,
them.
right.
So I mean, we didn't raise it.
That's right.
But I think-
Over 8, almost 10, this will be almost 12 years.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue is, yeah, we haven't given increases, but we haven't done a review
Yeah.
of it, which you would need to do first to see what's warranted. So my recommendation, just to throw something out as a straw man of a way to proceed on this, my plan is not to run in the next cycle. So I can be objective, I think. My recommendation was you would take form an ad hoc committee of 2 trustees and 2 citizens to look into this, report back to the board with the numbers, with the data, and a recommendation based upon the data. It would be, probably take a look at 10 townships in the general area, maybe a few outside, and look at the real numbers. If you look at the MTA, I wouldn't trust those numbers as far as I could throw them. Even looking at townships' budgets can be very misleading on how they pay people. There's stipends hidden here, there, and everywhere. So I did some work on this a couple of years ago, and the thought will be this committee would come up with a list of 10 or 12 townships that we would benchmark against, get the hard numbers, come up with some formulas based upon their populations, based upon their revenues, et cetera, and see what kind of a number shakes out of that for all salaries within the township. That's
Elected and other
elected
employees.
and appointed, or hired, or whatever. So,
So you're really asking for a salary review board,
yeah,
2 trustees ad hoc, and a couple of citizens.
and from the time standpoint, this is something that probably can take 2 or 3 meetings. One to agree on the townships we want to review and benchmark, what numbers we want to take a look at to make sure we capture everything, perhaps divvy up amongst us who's going to contact who and what the form will be to do it, pull the data together, and see what we can extrapolate out of it. So, but I think from a time standpoint, to be fair to everybody, the people who are on the board now that are considering rerunning, and any of the people who are currently not on board, to know what the salary structure is going forward.
And I already sent an announcement there, but we have a budget kickoff meeting from an in-house perspective, not at a board level, but on the 13th to start the budget process. We already started pulling early data to start it, so this is very timely, because when you start to think we're in March, April, May, and it's got to be done by June, so this early data takes a little time, and I won't get anything back from anybody until about the 1st of April. So probably a very timely thing to get done for them.
Or we can hire some consultants from Detroit. And that's,
That sounds like, yeah, Gordy, that sounds like something you'd suggest. Where were you at recently?
No, not Detroit. Columbus, Ohio. We can bring some.
No, but I'm just saying, that's,
Yeah. I think we can do it with our own.
Well, I mean,
I
I'm just,
did-
I'm just following TCAPs and
didn't
city.
you help or do the one, wasn't there one presented to the previous board?
Yes.
And didn't you have some input in that?
Yeah, I did. I did it for maybe 6 townships. And what I found is you need to call them
Right.
and press them to get the real numbers. But I would think, I'd probably want to expand it maybe 12. And the bulk of them are in the surrounding area, but if there are some that are a little bit further, that are similar to Acme Township, it'd be fair to look at.
We gave some data, Pete Correa from the Peninsula just did kind of a survey. We went back and looked what we gave him, and I looked at what he published, and there's some mistakes. So that's the kind of thing you gotta be careful. I don't know who took it from our form to his form, but it's not exactly right. You know, and so Gordy's right, there's a lot of little pieces to look at.
Cost of living figure.
One of the things on that, we have a little unique situation I was thinking about this today with the treasurer and the way they've done that. My thought would be, you would look at purely in here's the competitive rate for a treasurer, here's the competitive rate for a deputy. And if it comes up to X number of dollars, if they want to split it this way, that way, or whatever, kind of what we've done, that's up to them. So it isn't iron fast, well, here's what the salary has to be. So and that can be the same in the clerk's area. We said, this is the fair salary for the clerk's function, which include the deputy and the clerk, the treasurer and the deputy. And then there's some variations in that, the way they want to do it. And the board wants to go ahead with it like we did.
So basically gather some benchmark data that we can use as a board to make a decision.
Are you wanting any of us to help you, or are you wanting people that are not running? Because I don't know if I am,
No.
I'll be honest. I might not, right now
The thought
it's
was
too early.
Two trustees and 2
Not-
citizens.
So you, I, and Kathy wouldn't be involved.
Okay, well, I had to look at this as all trustees, I guess. That's
In
my
some ways,
understanding.
You were a trustee.
No, we're
No
all
longer.
trustees, right?
Trustee or
Board of
I'd
trustees.
be happy to work with Gordy if we can do the meetings in March and be real efficient.
Question, on having the meetings, if it's an ad hoc committee, my thought bounced off Jeff. You know, I have different opinions on this, he knew we were together sometime. It was an ad hoc committee and we didn't have a majority and we were simply pulling numbers. My thought would be, we could do that and this doesn't require, we have a majority, doesn't require a public meeting. If we get to the point, the final meeting, if you would, we say, okay, we boil it down and say, okay, here would be a recommendation based on these numbers, then that would seem to fall within the purview of a public meeting, which would not be a problem. But I'd like to move this thing along quickly, without making a big deal, especially if you get citizens in.
What question do we have to have as a public meeting? That's your question, basically.
Yeah.
I understand what you're asking. I knew you were gonna ask it too. I was waiting, or at least I was hoping. Look, I said before, any committee, subcommittee formed of the board, whether it's strictly 2 trustees and or members of the public, is a subcommittee of a public body, and it is a public body for purposes of the Open Meetings Act. And so what that means is anytime you have a meeting where there's deliberation, you need to have an open meeting. Now, I mean, you said you maybe need 3 meetings. Obviously the meeting, let's going from end to beginning, obviously the meeting that you're going to develop a recommendation for the board on is a deliberation.
That's fine.
On that issue.
That's what I
So
said.
we're going backwards, just like you kind of did. But here's what I would say. Look, I always err on the side of caution. If you're going to sit down in a room and be discussing this, and you step over the line, then you're violating the Open Meetings Act. Period, end of story. I mean, that's how it works.
Well, no,
So
a judge would have to, a judge would have to rule on that. The prosecuting attorney would have to decide to bring the charges, but
No, a citizen can file a suit under
Okay.
the Open Meetings Act too, and there are significant problems for the township if you lose an Open Meetings Act case, including the payment of attorney's fees. That's why I err on the side of caution.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, a judge has to rule that you have to pay the other side's attorney's fees, but you know what, if he rules that way, that's not pleasant for the township. So it's not hard to publish, stick it on the board and put it on the website that you're gonna have a meeting, you're gonna meet here, it's gonna take you a half an hour, you're gonna meet here anyway, all you have to do is tell Nancy. So I would suggest, instead of having 3 meetings, have 2. First one is to get your plan together, then you go off on your own, gather your data, come back in for that's a 15-minute meeting, come back in for your deliberation, you're clear, you're correct, you're certain.
Good.
That's the easy way.
Sounds good.
That's my recommendation.
Just my opinion, as you well know, I think you're over the line on conservative side, but that being said. But the real issue is, that all sounds fine. The problem is when you're trying to get 4 people together in a meeting, you say, let's do it next Tuesday. And someone says, well, I can't make it. And you start moving things around. It isn't as easy as you say to get 4 people, come up with a schedule and follow it and something like that. But
I know, but the act doesn't say if it's easy, you do it. If it's hard, then go
well,
ahead and meet. So that's where.
well, I'll just tell you,
Just have 4
It's
and
actually
3 can
18
go.
hours notice
Have
is all
3.
you actually need for the notice.
we'll do it, but I'll just go on record and say, I think you're totally misrepresenting the law, but anyway.
We'll make
I
it
am not
work.
misrepresenting the law. You can disagree with my interpretation of my, I'm comfortable with that, but I will tell you I'm not misrepresenting the law.
Okay, so you'll take the lead on that?
Yep, and I'll call public meetings.
We'll be fine, we'll do it the right way. Yeah, it will work.
Perfect.
Okay, anybody else on anything on that?
Who's setting up the 2 residents? So are those
Yeah,
2
well,
being the ones that just pick them at random? How are they being?
Gordy, you want some help?
I got it.
Larry, you want to be part of that?
Sure. I mean,
No, I'm just asking.
no, I
that.
probably the best thing is for, if somebody else has a recommendation, so it isn't, there's no
That's-
bias on the whole thing. Yeah, that's
I thought we.
unsolicited.
I thought about John Jessup has worked the SAD district, he's been willing to do some things, we could have somebody like John who's available. If Larry's willing to do it, the 2 of them would be fine. Nobody has any objection to that.
Are you available during the day? You're pretty flexible on your schedule? Okay, that's the key thing. When we had meetings before, getting
Going on
people's,
everybody else's recommendation there.
You know, Gordy, you know I do travel like every other week though. So can I participate by phone?
In some cases you can, I don't think decision-making, we don't allow that, but otherwise, that's not a problem, if that helps. So look at the data, yeah. I think that's workable.
it's gonna be this month. I mean, you say you travel, is it extensive, or are you?
I travel extensively. I travel, 50% of my business is travel. I have offices in Chicago and London.
Okay. Can you give me your, is the email the best way to communicate with you?
Yeah, we've got it, Larry's email, because he's on the ZBA, so
Okay.
works well.
I don't think I've ever missed a ZBA meeting.
No, that's right.
So
Okay.
it'll be Larry and, I haven't
I
talked
would
to.
suggest John, if we can get John to do it.
Okay, if that's fine.
He understands, he's been around this a little bit, so he understands.
Gene, are you fine with both of them, since you all are gonna be working together? I mean,
Yeah, as
Okay.
long as we get it done, because I have some client and business constraints, but it'll work.
Okay.
In March,
Okay,
through
thank you.
Wednesday, and be
Good
really
questions.
efficient.
If it's helpful.
Thank you,
I
Larry,
have
for
a-
being willing to do that.
I have a report from the clerks on salaries throughout for the townships.
Okay, can you send me a copy of that?
Yeah. Mhm.
Is that just for the clerk's salary?
No, it's for, it's been put together by the clerks,
Oh.
but it's for the treasurer, the clerk, the supervisor, receptionist.
Okay.
Whatever you got, then, yeah.
Yep.
The more information pulled together, the better.
Yeah, I'll get that to you.
Okay, let's move on, if nothing else on that. Old business. Unfortunately, we had to do this, but they decided in the state to have an election. So now we have to move our board meeting again. So our May board meeting, we have a resolution 2015 in front of you to move it again from when we had it originally to 1 week out. To take it to May 12th. So I need a motion to approve that.
Is it
11.
I'll make a motion.
Di, okay. Support. Scott? Okay, any question on it? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, thank you. Next item, Acme Township Water Testing Tools Update. A while back, Tom has been doing water testing, he does a great job, we got some reports for like 5 years worth of data, so it's really good from a benchmarking. Our tools are breaking on us, giving us trouble, and we also don't have a way to do turbidity testing. And Tom was able to find that we can get all our stuff updated for around $7,721, including the ability to do turbidity testing. It's a piece that we put in the probe, so it's not a whole new probe, but it is the probe has multiple tests it does when it does it, so we put it in there. And so we're asking, is the board willing to consider this, number one, at budget time, either now or at budget time, because we can't test in the next 3 months just because of the freezing water and stuff. So that's why this is on the board. Mr. LaPointe.
Okay. I looked at this, and $7,700 for some testing equipment is not insignificant, but if you need it, you need it. The concern I've got is before we approve this equipment, I'd like to know the plan for using it. You know, and I've sat in enough meetings and listened to the audience about what's going on in the streams, turbidity, it's, you know, the water's muddy, what to do. My take, and I would say Tom needs to go on the plan, but my take would be, first I'd want to see is, okay, what's the plan to do the scheduled testings? Where are you going to do it?
And we have that, but that's fine.
And okay,
That's a good
that's the
question.
first thing.
Right.
Then when there's a rain event, defined rain event, what is your plan to go out and test the turbidity? Because that's what the residents see. And it'll be something like, at this point, at the day of the rainfall, go out at this location, check the turbidity. 24 hours later, go out and check it. 40 hours later, go out and check it again. Because the issue with turbidity is not only the degree of turbidity, but how long it's present. A little bit of turbidity for a long period of time is more damaging than a high amount of turbidity for a short period of time. So we need to come up with a standard, so when we tell people, we've got the $7,000 piece of gear, we're going out doing testing, they can believe the numbers and what's going on. So I would say, give us the plan first of what Tom plans on doing with this, and see if it seems to make sense that will cover all the concerns that folks have, particularly.
I would agree with that, in addition to, no offense to Tom, but check with an expert that does this, in a sense, for a living, if you will. Someone from the watershed, or someone who has a background in this type of stuff, to see not only is this the equipment that would suit us best, but maybe what their recommendation is. And if that's the case, then great. But as far as being an expert on water testing, no offense to Tom, I don't think that's his forte. He's good at what he does, but
One thing, so we remember, what he does is not analyze, he does the test and then sends it to the lab. And I don't
understand what I'm saying.
you're asking.
Understand what I'm saying is that he's picking the right equipment to do the tests that we need.
No, I understand.
Because
That's what I mean by
if
that.
somebody else does the
Well,
test.
just
who's
another
that
thought
cost?
while he's thinking about what the plan would be. Since it is such a hot issue and will probably be this, I would say when there's a rain event, check the turbidity, you know, before this property, after the property, those points, and also go up to Yuba or someplace else.
That's it.
So we have a benchmark that, if the turbidity goes up 10 points here, but it also goes up there 10 points, you know, it's
Present testing does Acme Creek, Yuba Creek, Tobico,
Well, I want,
Mabel, and Whitewater.
well, I want something that will satisfy, and they have legitimate concerns, satisfy people that when these things happen, we have the numbers, not just people coming in here with bunches of pictures,
Nope, that's right.
that the water's brown.
And the process,
Yeah, so
because I see process, not necessarily, because we have testing equipment today, but no process.
The
It
plan
sounds like, other than our
process.
specific ones, I mean, I know we have our, the
I'm not
general
sure
one.
what you're-
Well, just, when there's a rain event that we have, is there anything outside the normal process?
Oh, okay.
So we don't
I just
have
wanna make
that
sure
now.
I understand.
Yes, we have, this is when he tests, now we want to have one. And I do think there needs a
Sometimes,
benchmark.
Yeah.
If we have development going on somewhere else too, because there's gonna be
It's not just
housing and
one,
everything,
yeah.
it's not just one.
That's right.
There's always gonna be a test one to say, okay, this doesn't have that, let's make sure.
I think that's very good. That's
So if he
fine.
comes back with a plan, we look at it, we're comfortable that he answers all the questions, then I'd say then we consider buying
But
this
should
equipment.
Tom be the one doing the plan?
We will- we will
I have
work with some
two,
people. I think
just
Paul's-
two thoughts though. I think what, you know, in my mind, I'd like an expert, to Paul's point, to take a look, and what would be the reporting device? What would be the report? And then you back into that, what equipment is needed, what testing is needed, and what we can afford with Tom is great.
Have
Because
you
there would
seen any of Tom's
probably be,
reports today?
I've seen,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
but I don't know, you know, I'm not an expert in this. I need to know from a third party, what is the type of report that is generated, okay? Then you back up, okay, therefore, what kind of equipment, testing, and process is necessary? Tom may be part of that. There may be a complementary component. You know, I think just getting equipment, but not having,
Not
Well-
knowing it's the equipment that's used by the standard today for that field. I mean.
It is. but-
This is pretty,
It may be,
We'll go
but,
ask.
but,
I mean,
No, I'm all right with that.
does it make sense for us to buy it or contract part of that out? I don't know.
I think that's a different question.
It is. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because,
Now, the reports today that we get,
you
the
know,
equipment provides the software that puts the reports together. So they're not something that Tom, so you know, it's not something we like put on an Excel sheet. They look Excel formatted, but they're not. The system drives that, the software.
I think it's very important to get the raw numbers, but be aware that there is no guideline that says, here's a threshold. If it's this number and it goes to this number,
yeah.
that's
On-
good,
on
bad, or
turbidity,
different.
but there are on the other.
Yeah, on
end.
the others, but the
Yes.
big one right now, so
At this
it's,
point.
but at least we have
I agree.
the number.
Okay,
um,
I'm fine with that. I think that's a very,
Okay.
none of that's wrong. It's a very good way we go approach it. How we started doing this, so you know, at one time, the planning commission said we want it tested, so they just started testing. And that was how it started, and years later, we're still doing it. So this is a very good kind of discussion to have, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Next, Metro Fire, Station 8 status, cost, and funding needs. There's a memo in front of you. Captain Shaw's here in case we might have questions he can answer, but I'll try to read this to you because part of this and the answer. You know, the first part is, do we need the station? Yes, we need a station. We've got guys sleeping in lazy boy chairs and
wow, you get a chair.
some of them do. Captain Shaw happens to have a bed, right?
Rollaway cot.
Rollaway cot. Okay. So that's part of the first paragraph. Land purchase. Because of many things, we are looking at different sites. We actually have two sites we're looking at. One is the Mount Hope site, and another is a site up here on 31 that was an old used car lot, trash junkyard.
Yeah.
What was that place called?
Jeans on.
Jeans, yeah.
No.
Because that's owned by the tribe, we're talking to the tribe on that. So right now, the reason we're looking at multiple sites, the Mount Hope site, we haven't got the final report on the structure of the land, how much clay, what it is, how much fill we have to put in, and it might end up being more costly to go there than someplace else. So we're waiting for the architect to get back and review the date on that. We decided not to go on the village site because of the problems we're having on the village site. Where we wanted the firehouse, the amount of land they had to give us eats into some space, and we didn't want to do anything that would affect any drainage and water runoff in that site. So that's kind of out of the picture at this time. The Mount Hope site does have some possibilities because we've had a discussion with Lanny Johnson's on that, and there's some ways we can get that at probably no cost to us. So that's the sites, sites, where we're at on sites at this time. Architect, we went out and actually bid out the architect through Metro. We got 11 back. They range just for architecture alone, any place from about 112,000 to 280 to 90,000. So that's being reviewed by Metro. So we have not picked who the architect will be at this point. We have a pretty good idea of the size and what the layout looks like. Three bays, if I remember right, for equipment, sleeping, and all the quarters is in there.
There's actually an early drawing that we have on the wall of Station 8 right now.
Right. And then the financing, but probably is one of the most important things. The budget for the new fire station 8's around $2 million. Currently, the Metro is negotiating with local institutions. On this bond financing is anticipated municipal lease or installed. Purchase would be the most cost advantage. Currently, we're seeing Metro incur debt of $2 million at 3.2% with a 20-year amortization and a 10-year balloon. So the payment on this firehouse would be about $136,000 a year, or 9/10 of a mil at the current township value. I don't know when Pat said that, to be honest with you, Captain Shaw, if that's all townships' value or just ours. He did not clarify.
I think it was Metro-wide.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
You would have to.
Yeah, just that kind of millage, I would have to be. And remember, Garfield pays almost a little over half, and then us and East Bay pays the other percents. So this is where we're at. It's something we have to continue to keep our eyes on. I've looked at the Metro, Amy helped me pull another report today. We looked at the millage money, and it will go up some each year. That's a good thing from a cost to Metro, to Acme Township's portion of whatever Metro is. Let's see. We are seeing the townships, 3 townships growing, but we're also seeing increased cost in call volumes and other activities. Last year, the increase for calls, it says, went over 9%.
And actually, Acme's increase in calls were closer to 15%.
Is that because of, is Hope Village counted in the calls?
Yes.
Any type of calls that we respond to, either be medical or fire. Actually, Hope Village probably saw a decline. We've been working with them as far as trying to get them to be more responsible for some of the, and I hate to use the word nuisance calls, but the lift assist that they might be able to do themselves. And we're getting some response in a positive way from their management on trying to train some of their employees. But like everywhere else, they have a turnover. It's not just once you train, you constantly have to keep training.
The other thing on calls that we are crossing our fingers on is Whitewater is using us a lot in the last, 6 months? And now they have stepped up better on their ambulance and some things. Time will tell if that works out and reduces our calls. But that was a big issue. I think we had, 18 calls a month there for a couple of months?
To Whitewater?
To Whitewater.
It was
pretty high, and we sat down with them along with North Flight people and had some discussion about how they can pick up their own work and not be at our dollar value for our cost. So, any questions, Gordy? I know you probably have some because you asked for this, and that's important. We do keep up on this.
Okay. Well, I guess the thing I'd like to avoid is what happened the last time. Let me back up. I think Metro does a great job, especially the EMS folks. I've had to use them a couple times in my family, so you do a fantastic job. That's number one. Number two is you definitely need a new fire station. I mean, I've said that 2-3 years ago. This is appalling what we expect these professional people to put up with here, so the sooner the better. But from a cost standpoint, I'm concerned in that, remember the last time when we bumped it from 2.1 mils to 2.2 mils, it was after the fact. We weren't told of a budget issue looming or we have to do something. We were there, we have to increase, the costs have gone up, we have to go from 2.1 mils to 2.2 mils. I'd like to be able to say to Metro, you've got a budget, like we all have a budget. And you have to operate within that 2.2 mils. And not just say, well, if it goes over that, we may have to come back and raise the millage again. People are tired of just, the answer is, with government agencies, just raise the taxes. I mean, our taxes are going up by virtue of the fact the appraisals are going up, so my taxes are already going up. And I just would like them to do a forecast going forward. Here's the revenue we're going to get based upon 2.2 mils, which I think is the number. And based on the projections of what the increases are going to be based upon taxes going, or not taxes going up, but assessed values going up. And if you have to cut some costs in the building of the project, you got to cut some costs out. It's like when you build a home. And I'm paying my own money, you know, this is what I would like, but boy, you pare things back. So, and that would include the land. If there's an option to get a piece of property for that's worth $300,000, so you're able to get it for free or pay for it, you really need a real good explanation of why you're going to spend an extra $200,000 or $300,000 to acquire land when there's some other land available. Now, there may be some reasons, but are they worth $300,000? Because we're going to ask the taxpayers to pay. At the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to fund all this. So I'd just like to see more of a sense that you're working within a budget.
I can see looking at it from that point of view, but you must look at it from another point of view, which is if you want them to answer however many calls they're answering today, with next year's increase of business they may have, they can do that. But you may be the 101st call when they're only allowed 100 calls. You follow what I'm saying?
I know.
So, I mean, you gotta look at it that way too. You gotta look at it both ways. I'm not disagreeing with that. But you need to keep that in mind. Because if you tell them hard and fast, you've got this much, they will work within their ability to make this much last a year. But at some point, it's going to run out. And when it runs out, you want to be the next phone call that needs to be made.
But the thing along that line, you know, numbers are numbers. You got to look under the covers. And that's why I asked the question about this 9% increase. And I asked about Mount Hope, and is our ambulance runs factored into that? You know, if you're running a business, sometimes you just got to do some hard things. And maybe if you tell Hope Village, hey, listen, you have to change your policy, and when someone falls, you have to pick them up, not call us and boost our numbers. And I just think there's opportunities, and I don't have any factual data, but I think there are opportunities to reduce some costs and try to stay in that 2.2 budget range and not come back to the board after the fact and say, hey, the building costs $2 million, we paid $300,000 for property at this cost, we have to go to 2.2 or 2.3 mils. I mean, I as a taxpayer, let alone trustee, I've had it with a lot of government. And it's not the local government for the most part, it's the federal government and the state government, but unfortunately, I can't impact them.
I think
that's my point. Yeah, I mean,
I think a lot of the initial expenses, I think they're looking at a similarity to Station 12, which was built with a lot of the funding.
There's grant.
Yeah, the 2008 recession and everything else. But I've actually met with the architect when we drew up the initial, and we were trying to scale it back, knowing that we had to come in a lot less. But I think we're still using some of those numbers because those are the only numbers we have that we can present at this point. But I agree with you. I'm a taxpayer, and you know, I would like to see things cost less, or at least come in where we think they are going
just
to be.
no more.
Yeah.
Just
no surprises.
Work within the budget and not just pass on to the taxpayers. So.
Good. Jean, you got a comment?
Are you done?
Maybe. I saw the minutes of the meeting last month when I wasn't here. You guys were here. Wait, you weren't here
He's
really
making up
long.
for lost time. I understand. You know, to Paul's point, I understand, I want to have the money there if we need to add people. I guess where I want to see tightening the belt or just being smart with the dollar is on the building. You know, if you can chunk it out and divide it, let's be able to afford people when we need them, but, you know, let's make sure it isn't the Taj Mahal or whatever. And I think Station 12, there's a lot that people have learned there. I remember, you know, kind of being in some discussions myself, and we're all asked to tighten our belts down there. I think a building, let's make it smart, not here, smart, and then have the money for the people.
We're looking at a lot of those possibilities. I work at
Great.
Station 12, you know, on a regular basis, and it's actually the closest station to where I live. And the first thing I said is, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of that. We don't need a commercial kitchen in there. You can get us a stove, and you know, we'll be happy with a regular refrigerator.
Good job.
And a lot of it is because of what conditions we have and that we've lived with Station 8. Anything's an improvement, and we'd be happy with it, so.
You know, perhaps we get some movers to come in and just move the building over to another site?
I think these are all good comments. We have to look at all those facets. We always recommend, anybody wants to come to the Metro meetings, please do. As you see this on the agendas, it's important. You have the right to come in there and make comments just like people do here. And it's important we do listen to those things and keep our mind sharp on what we're doing there and doing it right.
So, and this is just for my own brain, I hear Gordy. But honestly, and I know it comes back to us at the end, but it's really ends up being our dollar anyway. The Metro Fire Board honestly goes, okay, this is what we're doing.
100%.
It's on our dollar anyway, because we may not increase it, it's coming out of something, you know, so maybe then we have to do general fund. Am I not wrong here?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, all right, just making sure.
It's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money.
It's not, yeah, that's right.
That is correct. And it's the general fund or whatever else, or other departments, sewer, other places that money is going for parks or other services that then would be left.
And the more they can do a good job, which I think they're really trying to
There's
do,
nothing about-
then there's less of that need to come back for that money.
Yeah, no,
fair
there's no
point.
issue there. I think they do an excellent job. Just making sure I
Okay,
understand.
anything else on that? Thank you, Captain, for being here tonight. You are on duty too, right?
Yes,
He just
I
didn't
am.
come for this. That's how we get extra money. See, he's here to help us and also cover if we need him. So, thank you. Nothing else on that, anybody? Otherwise, Acme Sewer Plans DEQ response. We sent out the violation. I want to give everybody status, and I sent out the letter of, when we sent it back. Right now, we had to respond to DEQ in 30 days on this violation. We have responded on, 3 questions, basically, from the township, I believe it is. And there's some additional.
4.
Your response?
1, 2, 3, and 8.
1, 2, 3, and 8. So four items.
4 of the 8 items.
Which were more ours to respond to. We're waiting for the DEQ to come back in our last meeting we had with them and give us a letter on the engineering stuff they were looking for, because they've not given us definition of that yet. They told us in that meeting, ask for an extension. We did ask for that extension in the letter. So that's where we're at this time. I mean, the sooner we get what they want in writing back, the engineers are ready to start answering the questions. The kind of questions they're going to come back about is our system big enough in certain places? Do we have any builds to do? Is all the numbers ran on benefits needed cover this area? It's not just questions about the VGT property. It's questions about Acme Township sewer in general. So if you remember, a lot of the report Clyde put together earlier covers a lot of that. Where we have growth needs, is the lock and heap needs in the future counted in that? Is this pump station counted? So that's the kind of stuff they're looking at. And they'll probably ask us to, when we get that, we'll respond to it, and then they'll say, and this is the time frame, we'll have to chunk it into work activities, I believe, in certain time frames. Would you say that, Jeff? Jeff was in the meeting.
Yeah, it would seem to be.
Seemed to be the way. The data they provided us was, I think they had some work to go back and look at, and that's why it's taking some time. But they've sent us, 2 letters now saying we'll get it to you by this date, and we've not seen it yet.
Yeah.
So we just wanted you to, that's where that's at this time. Nothing else we can do till we get their response. Any other questions on that? Anybody?
Just had one.
Yeah.
I saw in point 8, the process change that Acme has made to,
Right,
hopefully,
or commercial checklist, I think. Yeah.
not have this happen again. From your standpoint, Jeff, do other townships already have this kind of process, or is what we're doing something different? I'm just curious.
It's not necessarily different,
Okay.
I mean, a checklist is a common, for a permit application is a common thing. It wasn't on the checklist. It certainly was part of, the answer to 8 really, if you look at the answer to 1, it's part of the process and has always been part of the process, and it was in the process of being reviewed and submitted, and it just fell through the cracks at some point. And so the way to correct that and make sure it doesn't happen again is to have some procedural check. And that procedural check will now be the land use permit checklist.
For commercial property.
For a commercial property. There certainly is a level of either expertise, from a contractor, engineer of record who's working for you and is working on a regular basis and reviewing things. That's one way to deal with it. Or, someone in-house who's doing, 9 to 5, that work. But, not every municipality has that for sure. You do now have an engineer of record too, who will be reviewing and those applications and those design drawings, and then, but that did happen in this case too. You didn't have an official engineer of record, but Beckett and Rader did review those drawings and responded by letter. This is the final letter, but it obviously doesn't have the attachments that went to DEQ. But the attachments included the letters that were, sent by Beckett and Rader saying, we've reviewed or approved it, it should be at the county DPW for review. Once completed, the applicant should send the application back to the township board for signature, and then file the application with DEQ. That didn't happen. Right, that didn't happen.
So part of that attachment too, was it so now we have this checklist?
That is now on a commercial land use permit
on the
checklist,
website.
so that a commercial land use permit presumptively will not be issued unless that box is checked and there is proof of a permit. I mean, the reason this is an issue in part is because it is Acme Township's duty to have a permit. It is your sewer, your application. That's why the notice of violation comes to Acme Township and not to the VGT, because it is your sewer system. For better or for worse, even though you're not constructing it, you're not paying for it, you're not doing anything, but it is yours. Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, oftentimes it's constructed, and then once it's completed, it's turned on and turned over to the township. And you get ownership of it, and but.
So who's responsible to watch the checklist on behalf of Acme Township then?
The issuer of the land use permit, so is the zoning administrator, and
Okay.
for right now would be your supervisor.
Okay. All right, good, okay, thanks.
Okay, any other question on that issue? Okay, let's see, what's the next item? Next item, is the Grand Traverse Town Center Acme Creek water testing interim and final testing. We're still doing some work on that. There is interim testing if there's an event that the village has agreed to do. We have a final testing plan in place today that once the site's at a certain point, that will go in place. We're having some discussions on that right at this time. But if there is a rain event, the village does go out and do, contractor actually goes out and does testing, provides data, we put it up on our website, and it's an interim testing process. Our original SUP was not very strong on any interim work to be done. There is some words in there, but it's not as strong as our final testing plan would be. Is that a fair way to say it, Jeff? And so we're trying to tighten that up a little bit, see what we can do with that. But they are doing interim testing. Of course, over these winter months, there's no water flowing. If there is anything that does, that will be done, provided Bill, if you can put it on the website. Okay. Any other question on that one? Let's move to 6. Sailor Park boat launch status and Bayside Park. I'm going to hit Bayside first, because I think that is as important as the Sailor Park to start with. We've got, last year we applied for a grant for Bayside Park through the MD&R trust fund application. It was for $400,000. We had some matching money that we had to put up, and the Land Conservancy said they would put $50,000, we put $50,000. Of our 50, we had to put aside about $27,885. It's in account 227 on Amy's report. I think that's still the right number, Amy. It's time to put that grant back in if we want to. There's no guarantee we're going to get it. We didn't get it last year. A lot of the money went downstate and other projects. I've talked to Marcy and some people, and we're suggesting that we don't put it in again this year. We still have to get enough points. We had to do some more on TARP. If Bunker Hill Road was done, we have some better chance of getting that. And probably not, we have no guarantee. If we got it, it would be fall of this year. We still won't be till next year we can do anything. And so the recommendation is we don't go forward that this time. We might wait till the following year if that's a better time for us, but we don't ask for the grant this present year. What we do think is important, and that's why it's tied together, is the Sailor Park boat launch. And I want to talk about that a little bit. I think it probably would help. Gene, do you think you should talk about the grants first, and then we talk about the final? How do you?
Why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Well, the Sailor Park boat launch, as we originally had the engineering from Gordy Fraser, find my sheet here, had an estimated cost with some extra engineering when we went into the state for our grant of about $188,895. As we've hired that engineering originally, the data we had was not full engineered. It was pieces of engineering. So what we got from Gordy originally was kind of a view. They never did any testing in the bay to see what the bay was. They didn't do a lot. They did not have an original tree removal for the parking area. Okay, they had the parking area shown, but no cost for tree removal in it. They had some things that were built out of wood, but the original that we went into the grant for was $188,895. Our revised estimate is $193,638. That's a matchup of the original grant to today's estimate.
Just to do what that spec had.
Yes, with nothing changed on it.
Okay.
Yes, nothing
So
changed.
188 to 193, okay.
193 what?
193,638.
638.
And again, that includes, because the original didn't have tree removal, you gotta remove trees both at the launch site and at the parking site. There was some things in the original that didn't have about drainage that's important. But you don't want the drainage to go right in the bays. You want some drainage in the parking areas and stuff to be captured and taken care of. Gutters and curbs and things like that. When we had Gosling and Schubeck look at this, we also found some other things that weren't in the original estimate. And one of them was dewatering. To do construction work, you have to go in and put some kind of piling in, dewater, get the water out. Because when this was done many years ago, the bay was low. Now the bay is almost up above the beach.
But they would have always had to have done
You still
that.
would have had to launch. Because if you're doing a boat launch,
You still would have had to
you
build it
still
in the
had to
water.
build it, yeah, into
No,
the
in
the
water.
water.
No, that's not what yes, but they did not have that in there in the original estimate. I agree with you,
They
Amy.
were gonna just put slabs in?
Yes, yeah, they were just,
Okay, so they weren't gonna do the.
there was no concrete pouring, no other stuff. The other thing they didn't account for, not only the water height, but look at the bay today, this year, and last year, is frozen. If you put wooden stuff in the freezing, what happens to wooden stuff we see at the marina? Heaves up, goes out. So there's some additional cost in here to, and they're not cheap, original, of sheet piling. Okay, pouring riprap around the sheet piling to protect it. Doing some things, I wouldn't say bulletproof, but makes it something that's gonna last and not be 5 years from now, more maintenance, more money. 5 years from now, more maintenance, more money. But something that will stay there. So then they did, another item they didn't have in the old one, which is, I thought, the old ramp to be removed. They just left it. They weren't removing it from the other stuff. Contractors, unfortunately, charge a fee now called mobilization. So when you're doing construction work, whether it's a village or the road or wherever, instead of just bringing the equipment on as part of the price, they charge you a price to bring their equipment on site to do the mobilization. That's just the way it is. Don't like it, but
I
that's,
charge you to bring my computer.
yeah, that's right. Jeff, gotta watch Jeff. So there's a fee for that. The overall, and Gene might help keep me honest in this number, but the overall cost has gone up about 142 to some thousand from what we thought originally it would be.
What's the new price? Estimate?
Estimate with contingencies, 342,462.
62, and we thought it was gonna be 193,638.
No, 188.
188, 895 is the original.
Again, there was never any engineering design money spent to really go design. It was to put some concepts and stuff together. Reasonable, you couldn't have bid on the package.
Right.
Today, even in the grant we got, we had to provide a bid-ready information back to the state. And Gene, is that called POS, or is that the right term for that? There's a name they call it.
Yes.
Yeah. It does, it's something like that. Anyways, you had to form or something to fill in and give them the state that goes back to the granting party.
PSA, I want to say.
PSA? Might be. So anyways,
Professional
that's,
Services Agreement.
yes, professional service. So this is where we're at today. We're gonna go back again and ask them, is there anything else we could sharpen down? It's important to see, is there any fat in here? There is, on contingency alone, 10, 26, almost 27,000, just in contingency. Now, the prices to do construction in '08 were low cost. Where are we at today? The road commission's saying, everything they're seeing is going up, because a lot of work, people want money. And the construction industry, we see housing and buildings, so what happens when that happens? Everybody raises their rates a little bit. Not an unusual thing to expect, but
How much was that unfunded liability you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting?
a lot less than this. More than this.
Oh, 20 million? 40 million?
It's 44.
44 million.
So this is where we're at.
But, you know, I don't think any, there was a plan that was done by Gordy Fraser years ago. None of us, it was sitting in a file cabinet. None of us looked at it. It grew old and stale. We took it out, we gave it to, we did an estimate to bump the price up, and then we found out that lots was lacking and whatever. I have no idea what this docking system is. Is it 2 launches? Is it removed in the winter? Is it a floating system? Is it poured concrete? Is it slabs? Maybe we need, before we go too much further, a presentation by whoever,
Klaus,
of what is it they're proposing.
It is a poured ramp with sheet pilings around the bottom of it into the bay. It is a single ramp now with it, instead of 2 ramps, single ramp that you pull into the park, come up, and then you can back down, and it has a place to tie your boat off to. So it's not just a ramp, it has a,
Didn't we have a drawing that this board reviewed, or was it the previous board?
I think that was the previous
board.
I thought we had one on this board as well.
We did talk about it when we went in for
You
this
saw it
grant.
with
Oh,
the
yes.
grant proposal, which I submitted last
But
year.
that-
It was
that
the one
has
from
like-
2008, and it was a preliminary drawing, so engineering was going to need to be done.
Well, like the 80s drawing, right? I mean,
2008.
2008.
is there a rendering or a spec sheet or something we can look at? If we're spending this kind of money on something, I have to say, as one of the members, I have no idea what the deliverable is gonna be, how many parking spaces you're gonna end up with.
No, I think that was all in the drawing, I mean, it's been a long time.
But it's
it
all
was in that.
changed.
No, it's 25.
In the drawing that we had,
The
the
drawing
most recent one I recall, which I believe was with this current board, had all that. It had the stumps that needed to be removed, the parking, the circle they were gonna make, and
And that was per the 2008
so,
engineering plan, preliminary engineering.
I guess, can we get the most recent rendering of that as the
Yeah,
the
what-
better question?
Something new
Yeah.
from Klaus.
Well, not even necessarily new, just what,
Well, it will be-
because we're talking numbers
Yeah.
without a picture to see what we're talking.
Let me explain something. Klaus came and presented at the January 22nd Parks and Rec meeting. I was there. And he showed some drawings at that time. There's a fundamental difference between what he showed then and 2008. In 2008, it was what, 2 launch lanes?
Yeah.
Okay? And I went, and Personal Capital invested there in a relationship with the DNR and spoke with them about 2 launch lanes, blah, blah, blah. The preliminary engineering plan, we got the grant, okay? Now Klaus is saying 1 launch lane and a side area so somebody can be bringing their boat in. Don't have it arc into the park as much, so there's some positive, very positive reasons for doing that, because you want to kind of keep the friendly character of Sailor Park and not turn it into some big commercial, not commercial, but big launch site, you know, so he's keeping all that in perspective. My fundamental issue is, I want to make certain he is keeping in constant contact with the DNR, because they awarded us a grant predicated on a certain design and 2 launch lanes. Now that it has gone to 1, and hello, you can bring your boat in while somebody's going out, but still different from 2 launch lanes, I need to make certain, just because I started this negotiation and relationship with the DNR, that we're keeping that going to the point where we could possibly, because this is an exception, we are basing this on a very difficult 2014 winter and a very difficult 2015 winter, so the reasons are sound, that we need sheet piling, not wood, very sound reasons. I am hoping that perhaps the DNR would say, gosh, you could come back to us for a certain phase or something. You know, if you don't ask, you never know. But I'm hopeful, Klaus said he keeps in contact with Paul, but I just want to be sure we don't get too far down there and we don't eclipse an opportunity to perhaps, and again, that would be April 1st. So
The other thing
decisions have
we've
to
had
happen.
discussion with about is sometimes you want to bill all in 1 year. In this particular contract, we believe you could let a contractor do tree removal, certain things late in the year, getting it ready for final construction the following year, so you can split some cost up. But we'd be glad to get him in to have that discussion, and no problem with that.
Well, it's just that 2 engineering firms came up with 2 completely different concepts, and I'm confused now. I'm concerned. I don't want to bring a third in to break the tie, but, and we're going from two launches, and what we thought was 188 or 193 to 1 launch at 342. And a big issue, as you all know, who's ever trailered a boat, is the turnaround area.
Yeah.
And,
That's why some of this is,
and it's gotta
Well, there
be,
so they didn't even have that part of it designed in any engineering specification in the original.
The radius
And the
wasn't
1
correct.
and 2 ramps, I'm sorry, but I need a little more explanation of that. I'm sorry, if you're a boater and go out, you know that at certain times of the day or night, everyone wants out and everyone wants in. And if you get any kind of traffic there, 2 lanes works at a launch, where 1 could be going out, coming in, or you can get 2 either way. 1 at a time could be.
I think it's going to raise the price was part of the reason. Good question.
But I mean,
You know what? And
but if it's just a money thing, if we're asking for grants in that,
you gotta match though.
I'm sorry, but if the match makes it more usable, depending on what that match is.
How reasonable it is.
Right.
That's a,
And it is a flow thing though. So when you do have to have 2 trailers going in down there at the same time, you are in a relatively rustic area, residential homes are there, do we want to make it so it's a high-traffic 2-lane? Or is the intent to keep it yet still somewhat rustic? 1 lane will help control, I understand what you're saying, but it will help control that
Those are some questions.
in the
Yeah.
natural flow. My concern is with what you're saying is May 1st, or April 1st is our cutoff, okay? To get a grant into the, I know for the DNR, or the
Olson.
trust fund grant.
No,
What
no, that's
about-
different, that's different than this.
And for DNR waterways, there's another
They're both
grant
the
which I'll
same thing.
introduce.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, keep going.
okay, so on April 1st, you're saying sometimes, and Klaus is making contact, am I hearing this correctly? Klaus is making contact with DEQ, hey, our plan, or DNR, sorry, plans have changed. Here's our new set of plans, unforeseen, wood to steel, obviously the common sense tells you that's more expensive. The pilings, get it. So then are they talking to them to say, yes, get us an application by April 1st, and we might be able to do something? So is that being discussed with Klaus and the D?
No, I don't believe with
And I-
Klaus and them, that would, Jean would, if we got that, she'd be doing that. She
I
has a
have
better
I have
position
another
on that.
proposal there, how I would work with Paul, but I'm not, Klaus has taken over the contact there, so, and Klaus has been gone for a couple of weeks, I think, so. But I think there's an opportunity to, there's another grant, which I'll bring up, which I'm all ready to do, and I'll explain that. Based on what the board says, okay? But what I'd like to do is have Klaus, or I, or however we do this, speak with Paul and see if he would let the gates go up. There's another DNR grant, which we would not be eligible for, but I'm aware of it, I've already talked with the person, and that would be the end of this year, and they would award it, and you could start next year. There might be an opportunity for us to do that, but an exception would need to be made. So, there, this is interesting. We thought this was so clear
Sure.
and well set, and now we have this. And to your point where you mentioned the traffic, that was what Klaus brought up at the Park and Rec meeting, and Mark Guy and Jack Challenger were both there, and they understood this, and they really liked, in fact, I think it was Jack's idea, to actually not just have the 1 lane, but actually fix it so you could come in. And they both liked it not being as big, 2 lanes, because they wanted to keep the character of the park. And it would arc in, but not as much as the other one did, and still keep a flow going, but not, it would be some sort of crowd control, if I could call it that. I mean, he had it all in his head. And if he's selling this to Paul, which I'm hopeful this, I'm trusting this is going on, but I'll find out, then maybe, it would be time, maybe he or I could have the conversation with Paul. Gosh, what would your recommendation be for us because of this situation? And try and maybe get an exception that would be palatable.
We've cut out paving that was recommended because it was so high. We've cut out, right for now, the ADA compliant. That was not a requirement, but we're going to put it in that way because you're going to get that forced at you, which is appropriate. I mean, there's people that have wheelchair bound and people that need that. We'd have to build that in the parking lot all the way to the park down to the launch. That's not cheap.
No.
So we took that out for now as this phase, and don't include that in the first phase.
Well, was it January meeting or December meeting, we said we needed to get this thing on track because the plan was to do it this year.
Try to do it this year. I don't
That's
think we're
on the
gonna-
table. I mean, I don't
With this-
see,
with this
if
new
we're talking
device.
conceptual, we don't know what it is.
No, I think you're right.
I mean, we need to,
We asked for a grant in the tribe, we did not get anything in the last grant cycle. So I think I'd like to have Gino talk about the grants, how much that is. Too, I think that's important to understand what we want to do there.
Okay. Do you want me to-
Yeah, I think that'd be a good time to do
Okay,
that.
and everybody, thank
Then
you.
we come back to this.
Jay just learned this number, I mean, this isn't something that we knew for a month or something. We just learned this, and we knew we needed to fasten our seatbelts, because Klaus was saying, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go up, but we didn't know to the degree. Keep in mind that a large part of this, a fairly large part, is a contingency, which may or may not be needed. If they've planned very well, you use less of that, so it could come under. With regard to the grant, the Olson Foundation, and I'm looking for grants that don't need necessarily a matching component. The Olson Foundation has a grant process coming up, and it's April 1st. I have the grant written in a draft form, okay? And in here, I took great pains to explain, because I have to explain the DNR grant, and typically that's 50%, so I had to explain that our pencils weren't broken a year ago, that it's sound, you know, a very sound decision that we're looking at. And I wanted to ask them for $50,000. Okay, now, based on what we talked about before, we were 27,000 short, now it's 20,000. Okay, well, I'm going to explain to them, I'm not asking for 20,000, I'm asking for 50 because we know it's more. Okay, but based on Jay, anything else you wanted to speak to the board about with regard to dollars, that number could go up a little bit, but I'd be careful. Or we just need to make certain we chunk it out in phases and do what we can this year and what we can next year. Keeping in mind that if you start to build a boat launch or you finish it, you can't go ask people for money. You know, the grants have to, you ask for the grants before you start digging. Some places you are ineligible if you've already started the project. They won't award a grant. So we have to be, this is interesting, it's a bit of something to problem solve. Okay, so with the Olson Foundation, they believe they have several different areas that they gave quite heavily to the Y. They believe in family activity, they believe in recreation. I've taken a look at all the awardees in 2014. I believe we have a great chance. We've put out for letters of support. I have some terrific letters from people. Do I have all the ones I want yet? No, but I have a plan. And I want some, and I know just who I'm going to get more to come in, but I have a good number of very, very good letters of support, heartfelt, from people saying, we really need this. So that's very important to have, and for the Olson Foundation, they really like that. So I've put in a call to them, and I've written them a note. I wanted to set up a meeting with them, but not until after tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I think in the one sheet Gene and I put together talks about grants, one of 50,000, one of go back for the tribe at a 39,000 like we did last time. And that, if you got both of those, just for a minute, you still would need additional township funds of $57,074.
Didn't we already throw some towards it anyways, Jay?
Yes.
95,000.
Huh?
Well,
we had 61
61,000
put aside, plus we threw money in there. It's on Amy's report.
26,450.
Right.
which I was fundraising to repay, which I'm
Right.
doing.
Right.
But, you know, and now we're 20,000 from there, not 26, 20, we're inching. And anyway, and then we learned of this new.
And I think it's well to remember what Gordy said earlier about the report. If this is something we believe is something we really want to continue to do, we ought to try to hone it down. We'll get Klaus in to talk about it. We ought to look at grants. But I think there is other township money available if we get to that point. I'm not saying we're there yet, but there is money available.
One thing, being on the board and being involved in different governmental things as I have, that's always been a pet peeve, is reinventing the wheel. And unfortunately, that's what's happened to this project so many times that it's night and day different than what it started as. I would like to see the plan that is on the board now, or on the plate now, if you will, and more or less tell everyone, no more changes. This is what we're doing. And it went from who knows what to 2 lanes to 1 lane to
Agree.
knock it off. Give us a good conceptual drawing and run with it and quit changing the conceptual drawing, because that's where we keep running into problems. These people want this change, that change, and by the time you get to what you're trying to do, which is where we're at,
Changes again.
it's changed again, and we need to get where we're at now and say, this is it.
But I also think sometimes when you start doing
For
projects
environmental
like this-
reasons, it makes sense, but for...
And sometimes in any project, you don't foresee wood and water, you get erosion. You got big waves sometimes come out. Now, don't get me wrong, the peninsula breaks it, but you still, ice, what's that do? One of the major eroders in our shoreline and all those issues. So going to steel makes sense, more expensive. Why it wasn't put that way, nobody knows. And so when you're looking at that, I can understand why those changes were made. Now, some of the little details, obviously, you know, I understand.
Taking a ramp or dock or whatever you wanna call it, from wood to steel is not a major change like we've seen.
It is possible.
Cost-wise, you're right, but that, again, it makes sense with what we can show weather-wise. But going from one lane to 2 lanes to the bigger turning radius to a turning circle to take that stuff to me is enough.
That's why I think your thought of having Klaus in's are right, so we all understand that.
Okay, but if we have him in, are we gonna miss out on something that we're hitting on April 1st? I guess that's my
No.
concern. We're not.
It's a very delicate position for me personally to be in, having to do this, and then later, whatever. But I think Jay has been in constant contact with Klaus this whole time on everything, and so we've been waiting for these numbers. And I know, Jay, you have a plan to go back and have him take a look at this and just, hey, and have you gone to Paul Peterson and what is Paul's understanding? You know, I personally need to know that. Meanwhile, I can go to the Olson Foundation and do my best and face to face and say, gosh, what is your recommendation for us in this case, or whatever, okay? There's another group that I want to go to which doesn't have a deadline. I don't want to go there until I have more information. I need to go to the Olson Foundation now.
Well, I think with the discussion though, that we ought to take a position, let's go for the grants. Let's go after them, and at the same time do the other, it's a parallel kind of processing.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
To go for the grant, do you have to know what it is specifically we're gonna do to ask for a grant? Because at this point, until they come and tell us what it is, I don't know what,
Well,
this is,
he showed drawings on January 22nd, and Jay, we talked about that, but because Klaus was not available, we don't have them for this meeting.
But
But
we
he
need
has
them.
them. He
Yeah,
has
he
them.
has.
January 22nd?
Yeah.
What's the saying?
He showed them
I said,
January
You've
22nd.
seen these drawings on January 22nd?
These are the drawings he brought to the,
But the
Okay,
number
Parks
was
and Recs
just given
first.
to us a
Okay,
week
got it.
ago. So we need to make sure that those drawings that he showed, they might have been changed, but the numbers were just from a week ago. So,
what he first did, Doug, is he's got the drawings laid out. Then he's had Bob Verche, which works there, the actual civil engineer, take that and turn it into a project run sheet of
Because
items.
I took it from Gene that you couldn't bring the drawings here to the board, you had them on the 22nd.
well, we had something
do
on the
not-
22nd,
We
but
do
I
not
don't
have a
know
copy
if
in our
they
hand.
match.
You don't
This.
have a copy?
I don't, no. Because they were doing the run sheets on all the, like, how many tons of this, how many, all that. We now have that. He did not have, I don't believe, all that at the Parks meeting at the time. I wasn't there, so I can't, isn't that
Yeah,
right?
he had a lot, but he hadn't priced things out yet.
That's what I meant,
So when he
pricing.
priced things out, those drawings may have changed. But again, I'm not the contact person. Jay is dealing directly with him on all this, so
And that's,
I'm the grant lady.
your question's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
If you have a drawing and you've got a dock and it's wood and you say, no, I want to make this metal, that's different than if you have a drawing with different lanes and different turn rate. That's night and day difference. We paid for an original drawing to be a certain way. To change the materials on that drawing is a minor change. It's not a re-engineer or a major cost, if you will.
Yeah,
It would have gone a lot higher
it's a
with 2
major
lanes.
cost, but it's not an engineering per se.
But the original drawing, even though
Not
he
a-
had it, was not anything,
Not a cost that we had here and threw away and paid someone here to do the same thing or similar.
Right.
That's what drives me nuts.
I,
We need to stop that.
so anyways, I think we should go ahead and apply, let Gene go ahead and do the grants, because I think we have the data. If you need the drawings for the grants, we'll get a copy.
That's what I mentioned last week. You mentioned he's gone for 2 weeks.
He's
I
just
really
came back
need those.
today.
Need them, and he needs to have them spec to these numbers, so nothing you know, nothing that,
Drawings aren't spec to numbers.
well, okay, let me explain that. They need to tie, it can't be something that he's going to cost out differently than what he
No,
did
I
a
agree with
week
that.
ago.
I agree.
If they have to match.
If
So
they're
if he
just
changed it from the 22nd, whatever it is, it needs to match the
Yes.
numbers he gave us.
No doubt, no doubt.
So the specs need to match the numbers, is my point.
Okay, and the board has
I
approved
don't-
this.
His
I'm not-
drawing specs on how long it is, will cost $79,000 to do it in
But the
steel.
drawings don't show that. What you're saying two different things. One's a set of drawings,
Mhm.
okay? The drawings don't have a bill of material on them, on the spec out. Now, if you need that, then we'll have to provide
Not
that.
for Olson.
Okay, that's
not
all
for
I'm
the
asking.
Olson Foundation.
That's a different
All I'm
issue.
saying is that whatever he gives us needs to be tied to these numbers. It can't be, oh,
Yes.
this is good enough.
I buy that.
It needs to be tied
I
to
buy
these
that
numbers.
statement, yeah.
Because frankly, I would like to go back to him and say, gosh, this is all nice. It's going to be $250,000. What can you do for us? And, you know, or whatever, but I think, and also I just want to make sure that the relationship with Paul Peterson at the DNR has been cohesively and faithfully kept.
So we'll go back, I'll talk to Klaus tomorrow. We should be able to get the drawings.
Great.
So, do we need a motion for you to be able to do grants for the Olson? Do we need to make a motion for that? I would assume we do.
It's one grant and it's $50,000 if that's what you'd like me to do. If you'd like me to
I would like
go
to
for
make a
that.
motion that Jean applies, and then we can talk about it, if there's a second. Applies for the Olson grant, based on the site plan tying into the specs that we were given in January. And I guess that's it.
Support.
So now-
Good. We'll come back again for the 2% when that time
Yeah.
comes. That'll be separate.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
That, in a sense, that does not have a deadline like some of them that,
Olson does.
Olson does.
okay.
Olson is April 1st, so that's why.
I'm talking deadline that
To
if
use
they
it.
were to, for use.
To spend it by.
Once we get it.
I mean, if we,
I
if
don't
we
think
tell them
they
we're gonna
know.
get it and we're working on it, are they gonna be okay with it's not gonna be in
Spent tomorrow.
15, it's gonna be in 16?
Yeah, I'll
that
find
kind
that
of
out.
thing I wanna
That's
make
what
sure
I'll-
of.
That's what I'll negotiate.
So-
I want to kind of appeal to, I think they're more flexible than, like,
DNR has 3-year kind of thing,
Yeah.
that's it.
yeah, I want to appeal,
If there's a time limit as that on it, I would like to at least be aware of that before we accept the grant. So you could still put it in, and if there's a time limit and it's something,
Well, we have Gene just find out and communicate to all of us there is or isn't. Wouldn't that be the easiest? Then we'll know.
well, she can still apply.
Yeah,
We just don't have to accept it if they give
that's
it to
that's
us.
true.
So if, when you wanna do it, you don't wanna have to wait for her to talk to all of us again, and,
But we're already phasing it, so could we not do part of the phase of the
Right.
stumpage and some of those other things, and potentially if that money had to be used first, we could use it first? I mean, I certainly won't want
If
to
you
give out
got into that.
$50,000 if
No.
somebody's willing to give it to us.
But I think Gene can find that. I don't think that's gonna be a
No,
hard thing to
I
find
don't
out.
know.
That's pretty
I'll,
easy.
I'll do my best.
And if it has a short interval, I think then that is a different question. No doubt about it.
There's
Not
a-
that we wouldn't, but it's just what it is.
There's another grant too, and it's a fisheries trust one, and it does not have a deadline. And I've written them twice. I now have a personal link through the tribe that I can go to because I didn't get a response. And I'm going to, well, you know, you keep knocking, and I'm going to find out about that. But typically, when you apply for these, they want you to show the exact budget you need and where is it coming from. So, you know, I had to put something down here, but it's kind of a moving target right now, so I have to parlay that, but still make us eligible.
I don't know what you mean. I think you have that data now.
I do, but let's say Klaus comes back and says, oh gosh, you know, it could be 30,000 less, then,
Oh, that would be it.
Yeah.
I buy that. But
okay.
we have a format we can do that with if we have a change. Yes.
Jay helped me immensely in like a condensed amount of time, take a look at all of Klaus's numbers and get them in a really good format between the two of us. So everybody, thank you very much for working with me on this process.
Thank you, Jean.
Just for the sake,
Who wants to make a motion?
Yeah, we didn't.
I have a question. Just
Wait,
for-
before you do that.
Go ahead.
We have a motion on, let's make sure
We
we
have
have
a
a vote on the
motion.
motion
Yeah,
until we get that.
yes.
Any other question on the motion? Corey?
I have a question. Okay, just, the board has not seen what's being proposed to be built, so we have therefore have not approved it. I would think the board would want to know what it is that's going to be built, right? Or does the board not have to? I mean, you've looked at it, I guess the Parks and Rec has. Is that good enough?
That's a very valid question.
I mean,
We've seen different concepts, and that's my point, we've seen different concepts, but I've seen how many of them since I've been on the board.
Would that stop you though going for the grant?
well, okay, that was, well, I guess if we're not going to be, if what is out there at 342 is it, that's the final thing, if that's, if that decision's been made, then you certainly go for the grant, there's no issue. I guess my question is, what happens if you go for the grant and you detail this 342 and whatever, then he comes to the board and we go, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to make sense, this isn't what we expected, and there's some changes. I mean, we're putting the cart before, we don't have an approved
It's a good,
plan, which you normally would have before you go and ask for
I have an
grant
idea.
money.
I don't know, as long as I guess any idea is okay here. Could he come to the next board meeting? Could he present everything, and could he also talk about what Paul Peterson has said? If anything changes drastically, I will trot right off to the Olson Foundation again. It will be after April 1st, but I can commit when I meet with them to continue to give them updates or whatever.
That's one. My belief is since we're only asking for, if we were asking for all the rest of the money, I kind of would go that way. But when we're asking for a percent of the money, even if it goes up or down some, you're not gonna have enough to cover whatever it is.
Okay. If they're fine with that, if the expectation at that organization is, it's fluid, you don't have a firm approved plan,
I don't know.
then fine, but I don't know if that's the case.
I have to kind of work with them on that point, I think.
That's
And
understandable.
I will, and I will do my
Because
best.
you're asking, right now, you're asking for a grant, and all we have is a vision, a concept.
A little more, but we haven't seen it all. I agree with that. I don't know. I mean, I think you could do it either way, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, if
We took,
if
put money aside and
Olson
we
is one
had
of these
no idea
sticky
what it
things
was.
that, this is it, you better have all the details, and the board's approved it, I mean, that would be a question I would ask if I was on a committee who's a grant money, has your board approved this design and this funding? And as of right now, we haven't. But I don't, maybe they're looser than the DNR, don't know.
I don't
Well,
see
I'll
your call.
explain, I'm certainly going to be very upfront and explain that to them, and if that throws us out for this cycle, then it does.
Well, or if we think it does, we call a special board meeting earlier than our regular meeting and sit down with the Klaus and the plan and go through it, and everybody says, no, good, bad, or whatever the answer is. That's another thing. Because, I mean, you can do it either way.
I'm getting a plan together.
No, I think you're seeing it differently than what I'm hearing said, which is if in relaying our concerns, not concerns, but our issues to the Olson Foundation, that this is the concept the board kind of understands we're gonna go with. And then the drawings may come in different than that. If they're gonna have an issue, if we go back to them and say, this is, the concept's still there,
The view's a little.
the view's
it's
different.
Purple, not green.
Are you okay with that still compared to,
One lane versus two lane kind of thing. whatever.
right? And if that's gonna exclude us from consideration, then don't spend the time, I guess, is the way I would put it.
Just, I guess the question is, how firm are they on their criteria? If it's, like I say, I guess one question I'd ask is, has this been the funding for this formally been approved, and has this been approved by your jurisdiction? I mean,
Well,
so if we need a special meeting,
I think, I think this application is going to be more thorough than I would bet many other applications are. It's similar to the DNR one, but we've taken great pains to explain, or I have, and Jay has looked at this, why the difference. I think when I speak with the Olson Foundation and say, look, it's gone up, this is why. The board is waiting to see the exact final plan, has not yet, but we know it's going to be over our original amount. Are you okay with that? I don't think they pour over plans like the DNR, because they're not that way. But I do think that it will take a little bit of massaging in the correct upfront way to let them know, because at some point we may need to, you know, and I'll keep it, not that we'll correct anything, but we'll continue to keep them updated.
Yeah, like 2% grants we apply for, we do show budget numbers, but we don't have to give them a drawing of what's being done or any information other than the budget number. They know that they give us a grant, it might not be the whole amount it takes additional money. So it's a piece of the.
Yeah.
You make the call, you know the deal, I'm fine with that, but just, I would much rather have had something nailed.
It will.
We can explain. If somebody asks me, what are they gonna build down there? Right now, I don't, it's floating, you have to move it in the winter. I have no idea what this is.
And so we'll be able to get those drawings quickly. You said he's got them, right? So we can get them here, get them at the township, so people can see them.
So let me do this. I'm gonna try and,
We still have a motion on the
oh, I'm sorry.
We still have the motion on the floor.
Yeah,
So we'll make sure.
So,
the motion was to
Okay.
allow you to go forward with it, and I seconded it, and we'll wait and do the vote, I guess.
Let's,
and that's all.
all in favor, and then Jeff, you had a question after that, so don't forget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now, Jeff, let's let you.
Normally, I don't stick my nose in this stuff, but actually, Gordy, you just mentioned it, my thought, just a minute ago. I heard you say that, you know, you couldn't do a wood dock, you need to do a sheet pile pier, but, and maybe you can't do this, but can you have a removable dock that's one of those substantial removable docks that goes in and then gets pulled out in the winter and sits up on the ramp? Because to me, that would presume those are significantly cheaper than having sheet pile drivers.
Not usually at this size of a dock.
Okay, I mean, you know, again, I don't know the answer, I don't know any of this, I don't know what it looks like.
Remember the one they had for a dock road, they want us to put it in, when you put a trailer on it, like there's no extra room on hardly either side of it. It was they were something big enough, and then to take them out, if they get bigger, you bring a big crane in to pull them out. It's not something you pick up with the.
Well, I don't mean the ramp itself.
Oh.
No, not the ramp, just
the pier.
dock.
The dock, the
Just
pier.
dock.
Yeah, like you go to lots of,
Yeah,
see
I'm
lots of
sorry.
launches,
I
and you
was
see
thinking
the
of the
pier
crane.
pulled up in the winter, the municipal pier, the pier's pulled up in the winter on the ramp. It's
Valid
not,
question.
I mean, again, I don't know, I just, but it seems that that is cheaper than sheet pile and all that stuff that goes in
Well,
for a permanent cement pier. But maybe it can't be done in that location. I was trying to find a similar
Yeah, the
thing.
sheet pile
It's not much on the,
around
it's not much on the
like they have
internet.
over.
Well, I was looking at Google Maps to see.
The sheet dock is more around the ramp than it is.
You know what the.
Okay.
with the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some work to do on this.
One other, along this same line,
Yes. One question.
along that same
Unmute
line,
everybody.
when we went for the original match from the DNR, maybe this was covered, but I missed it. We went for the original match from the DNR, whoever it was, we said it was gonna cost 188, and they would give us, they gave us 50% or some
Yes.
percentage. Now, are you saying, what our plan is, once we nail this number, if it's 342 or whatever it is your plan to go back to the DNR and say, we want to, an amendment, we'd like to file an amendment, and ask for the additional monies to get up to 50% of 342 versus 50% of 188?
I guess.
Is that fair?
I guess in my mind, I say, I probably would phrase it a little bit, hey, Paul, you know, what do you recommend we do? Here's the situation. Or Klaus, do that. If you don't ask, you never know. But because of the harsh winters, 2 winters in a row, so 2014 was not unique. I mean, we have a reason for changing it, and it's going to be a more sustainable boat launch. I would go back to him, or it's whatever Jay and Klaus decide, or Klaus goes back, but I think we need to have the conversation.
I would believe if we want to do that, we would have you do that and not Klaus.
Okay,
You had the original conversation and have, I think, the relationship from a township perspective. And we ought to maintain that piece of that relationship.
how about if I try to do that? Well, okay, we already voted, so you want me to go,
Do both.
do this. I'll try and reach him right away and just kind of get this going and let him know what's.
I just don't think changing those relationships.
No, I agree,
Just in the
but I
middle.
didn't want to, get in there if you and Klaus wanted to.
No, I don't want to
So
get in there.
you'll inquire with the DNR to see
Yeah,
if
and
it's
just see what
appropriate.
their ideas are. I'm not gonna suggest an amendment or anything. I'm gonna ask, gosh, what other things might we be eligible for with these extenuating circumstances, et cetera, you know?
It's a fair question.
Yeah, and not,
Okay.
you know, I don't wanna make it formal. I wanna make it, gosh, how can you work with us?
Okay, then Klaus at the next board meeting is gonna give us a presentation, that's the plan?
If he's not able to come himself, at least
We'll have somebody come.
submit
We'll have somebody
something
that
to us.
understands the plan
Yeah.
in detail.
Because if it's changed
Timber
again,
bond.
Can you inquire so he doesn't get blindsided? Ask him beforehand his thoughts on what would be the implications of a removable docking system.
I will.
Is he back now, did you say?
I said, yeah, today. He just
Okay,
came
great,
back.
great. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for your help.
I think it's going to be a great project. We just got some work to do. It's not been easy. It has, any project has scope creep. This has had a whole lot more than we've ever thought of from that perspective.
This teaches us really to, maybe not put things on hold, but
Public comment will come here later. Got one last item on here. Review update of board procedures. Kathy, I believe, had sent out those for all of us independent to look at. You were, I think, instructed to send any comments back to Kathy direct, not to anybody, which is, if anybody did, I know I did send some to Kathy. Based on the time, if you combine those, what have we done with those? Any input you have?
Yeah, I just took the questions that I received that you sent me, and I went through and made comments.
Did you get anybody else send anything?
No, this was it.
Okay.
Not that anybody-
I had some I thought you were gonna ask for them today, but I pointed out something that I was gonna ask as we were sitting down at the table, and I think you've already been asked that, so I'll wait and see.
You want to go spend time tonight to go through that? You want to wait till next meeting?
I guess maybe could you at least let me know what questions have been posed to you, since it's an open meeting, public, whatever, and if the questions I had aren't answered, I can ask them, email to you, and then we can go, or we talk about them now, if they haven't been.
Sure.
Go ahead.
How many questions do you have?
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was five topics, 5.
Excellent.
And I just, some of them are quick and easy, some are,
Let's hear them.
okay, all right. Closed meeting, section 4. Since we have no closed meeting room, could Metro ready room be used as long as no Metro North Flight personnel in room? Yes, we can go into Metro next door and use that because we're limited on for a closed meeting.
As long as there's nobody in the room.
Right, no personnel in the room, yes, okay?
What number is this?
2.4.
Oh, 2.4.
There was one before that. Did you answer
Oh,
that one?
Oh, 2.3,
Yes.
emergency meetings question. Can this be less, based on less than 5 not available? It's asking about the vote.
No, the statement says, emergency meeting can be called by 2/3 majority of board members, 5 of 7. The question is, what happens if I have an emergency and I can't get 5? That's my question. Do you just have a meeting? Do you not have a meeting?
Well,
It's an emergency. I mean, we really, let's think of it like a homeland security kind of emergency, we need to do something. I don't know. Can that be done or not? It's more of a legal question.
right. Well, and to clarify the emergency, first of all, is to be handled somewhat like a special meeting, which, number one, it can be called by the supervisor first, not just by board members.
That's
So,
not what this says.
I know it.
So we-
I know that.
Can it
That's
be
what I-
changed?
To add that.
Yes, and
Okay.
I've got the words added, I've got this changed. And I got copies for everybody, I don't know if you wanted to.
If it can be changed and it's all right, I'm all right with that. I just want to make
Yes.
sure.
So it can be called by the supervisor or
First.
called by the 2/3 majority vote.
That's,
Or a majority vote.
Right.
But, it doesn't have to be, the 5 to 7.
Is it the same as this?
Yes, in that order, other than, it can't be, no, it can't, we can't determine if there's gonna be a meeting at a prior board meeting.
No, but it would be called by supervisor or
Yes.
called based upon.
Yes, the 2 and the 3.
Okay, so this is incorrect right here.
So,
you can add the
yes,
supervisor.
yes, it needs
Are
to
we
be
all right with
added upon.
the other part, Jeff?
Which other part?
So we're adding this.
You're changing called by 2/3 majority board
Can I
members.
show you, can I pass this out?
Just show it to Jeff, that's just
Okay,
let it
pass it
show.
down to Jeff, then, please.
I mean,
It's in the yellow.
you know, an emergency meeting is sort of a, it's not really contemplated and so you
It's
can
not like
decide.
to talk
how you-
about the park.
I mean, when I reviewed this, from a legal perspective, my thought was, well, okay, you know, understanding that an emergency meeting really is something that is an anomaly, it's something that, you know, if there is a catastrophic flood or a terrorist attack, then,
Somebody drives a truck through the
and
center
you
of the
guys managed
door.
to make it here
Should I lock the door?
despite
I have a
the,
board
you
meeting
know,
first.
the chaos and disruption and anarchy,
Really does.
and you make a decision to do something, what are you really gonna be deciding to do? Well, we're gonna, you know, I don't know, the police are gonna be deciding those things. So, I mean, the reality is that this is so far from
A reality.
the likelihood that if you wanna say the supervisor can call it, or a 4 of 7, yes, I don't think there's any issue.
My next question with exactly what you said is, these are general guidelines that we are gonna make every attempt to follow. It doesn't mean that we can't do something different if there's a true emergency or if there's a true, or am I wrong in
If
thinking
you
that?
all were, you know, if there was a meeting here and, you know, you left and you all got in a bus and, except for
Amy.
Amy, and, you know, and she was the only elected official surviving, she may have to decide something, yes. You know, I mean,
The last man's name.
you know, she might say, Tom, get your truck and plow through that.
Okay.
You know, and you can speculate all you want about that.
I think we'll follow
Yeah.
Kathy's word on that one, so let's go to the next
Yeah,
one.
that's a good.
But I want to, really
That's a
quick,
good-
I want to comment, you know, you asked about sort of the emergency, and just really quick, just so you have this in your head as you're thinking about this, if you notice this disclaimer at the beginning, that important note, there is a lot of summarization in here of statutory requirements. And it is summarization, and it's not, I mean, so the idea being that if you are going to be utilizing this as the document that determines what you do and how you do things, keep in mind that it's not the actual law. It's all of this in here is based on, well, the majority of it is based on statutory requirements for a general law township, and Open Meetings Act and other things too. So, the only way to make it accurate to a T is to put the entire law in your procedures, and you're not going to do that, but just so keep that in mind as you overall review this and think about it.
Section 3.3 is the next one.
Yep. Right now, currently, we have the new first, not the old. Jay's comment was agreed in the last meeting, we need to reverse this order. Number 12 needs to be new business, number 13, old business. We're just open to have this on discussion at the board meeting. I don't think all members were present the last time we spoke about it.
But we did discuss it and make a decision on it
Okay,
in the last board meeting. That said, we'll leave it as it is. If we come to the meeting and want to change it at the meeting, we can make that motion to change it.
Okay.
and do it.
Well, I'm just clarifying it, that's why I left it on there. Is everybody, are we all in agreement
Yeah.
with that then? Okay, all right.
Section 3.6.a,
Is restating always required even on simple motion, and is this after all discussion? 3.6A.
we tried, but I wouldn't say we always restate every motion. So the question is, this is section 3.6a, it's about restating motions.
Right.
Motion's been made unless it's, it says before it's adopted, we ought to make sure that we restate it. I think there's some very detailed ones that's very important. The question is, does it have to be always, or we take this as not, make good sense out of it?
When I called on this came, I called and I spoke with Cindy from MTA, and she made mention that this is directly out of the parliamentary procedure following, and she recommended that, because I asked her, I said, well, what if something, we vote on it and it wasn't stated at the very end? You may not want to hold yourself to that.
Okay,
Wait,
so,
That's an
Go ahead.
MTA ruling though.
I
okay, so, let me ask you this. If we put this in here, where we normally do this, honestly, we do.
A big
We do
percentage
most
of
of the time,
But not
I mean,
always.
most of the time we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So, because we do want to know, and we do change it,
Yeah.
and so then it's like, okay, let's all
Well,
hear
by the
what
time
we're.
we're done talking about
Yeah,
it, we forgot what
We
we
forgot what we're
said.
talking about, exactly.
Right.
So, in my opinion, we normally do this. If for some reason, because it's in here, we didn't, would it make that motion invalid?
Yes, that's my question.
It would.
Yeah, the danger of
Then I don't
putting
wanna say-
rules in
Then,
writing
then
and.
let's,
and-
then can we say something like,
Is that-
a very complicated motion or resolution can be restated by the supervisor, or something like that?
What's
Just make it-
complicated to you is gonna be different than what's complicated to me, so I don't like that at all. It's either in or it's out, and I don't like the fact.
Are you talking about
that
three
nullify
A,
it.
Yeah,
3.6A?
3.6A.
Statement by supervisor.
Yep.
Then let's strike the sentence.
No, I mean, all motions may be required to be in writing upon demand of any board member.
That makes sense.
There's
Right.
no motion or
It's
resolution
before
shall be
that.
entertained unless it is seconded or adopted until the supervisor or presiding officer
Or restates it, there is,
restates
I
it.
see.
Just drop the first sentence. Just drop the first
I mean, the short answer is it's good practice. You should strive to do it. It's possible that you will adopt something at some point and someone will forget and someone says you have a procedural defect in your approval and therefore it's invalid.
With it in there.
Yeah, if you had this
That's
recorded.
there.
That's why I'm
So
looking down to
strike
take
it.
it out.
Right.
Not that we won't try to do that, I think like Amy said, we do that a lot in many motions. Just keeps us from having.
Yeah.
And honestly, the second sentence that says, sentence that says may be required to be in writing upon, that, I'm fine with that. But to say that, as that first sentence, I don't like
No,
Okay,
it makes
can we-
sense to strike it.
I think we're all in agreement, drop the first sentence.
Yes, very good.
It's entire, okay, good then.
Okay,
That's what, 6.1?
yep.
Last one, section 6.1.
What about board of review, which is appointed by supervisor and approved by board? Maybe it should be shown under note and not be subject to section 6.
Well, it's a board we approve, I recommend, you guys approve. My only question is, we make note of the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals for that, but not the board of review. So do we need it in there, don't we? It's all right either way to me, but I just want to.
Well, from my perspective, you don't truly need to have a note that says planning commission, zoning board of appeals are not committees and are not subject to section 6. When I did my legal review of this, they were included in there, and I changed that because they are not standing committees, they are not subject to these things, there are different rules that apply to those
Right.
statutorily appointed bodies.
So we can take that out, and that eliminates
Great.
it.
You could take it out entirely, and
That note.
without it, the exclusion means that they're not subject to those.
Right. Right.
So you could take the note out.
So is the board
As the
happy
officer,
with just
or you can
taking
add the
that
board.
note?
That's just
Either add it or you take it out. What's the board?
Let's take it out. It's already covered.
Take it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, those are the mine, all mine that I,
The one thing, and I'm sorry, I don't recall where it is in here, but I know it was in one of the documents I read online that you sent to me.
Okay.
Was a requirement, and the way it was worded bothered me, and I can't recall the exact way it was, but it was to the effect of, all board members will be at every meeting or will notify the supervisor, they won't be required, this, that, and I thought, no, circumstances arise. If someone makes a habit of not showing up and not letting the board know, that is a big problem. But to make it a requirement, circumstances come up, and the way it was written just bothered me that it didn't allow for,
Well, is
and
it-
I don't recall where it was.
Let me think. And I
You
remember we
nodded,
handled
because you
that.
know what I'm talking about.
We handled that at one of the meetings, so let me, I mean, it came up, you brought it up earlier,
Yeah.
Was that about,
months ago.
That
Maybe
was,
you took it out in the previous
was
draft.
how we were,
We didn't see
notifying?
this
Was that
previous-
about how we were notifying?
And
Oh, by email and confirm.
Yeah, I mean, you
Where are
have
looking at
to, you
that?
know,
under 2.2, and then look on the matrix, meeting places, board, and public inputs, second paragraph.
Meeting, date, time, place. Is that where it's gonna be?
And that was
Is
kind
that
of
where
my,
it was?
that might have been where I saw it, and it bothered me because if you guys, if we need to have a special meeting, an emergency meeting, and it's the middle of cherry season, good luck getting a hold of Doug in the middle of the afternoon on a sunny day. And you want a meeting at 18 hours tomorrow. Now, the way it was written, it was, you will notify him, you won't be there. Well, it didn't allow for if the person didn't get notice. I mean, Jay's gonna make every attempt to get him the notice, but it didn't allow for if that doesn't happen, them not being there, and that bothered me. And I don't recall exactly where it is, but if you can make sure that's not in there, or it allows,
Well, let's do this. Let's take the updates we did tonight, have Kathy put them in the document. Bring it back to the next, send it back out there, buddy, and bring it back to the next board meeting.
and I'll look a little
Then you
closer,
can
I'm
look
sorry.
closer.
yeah, this isn't the area he's talking about.
I know.
You know what I'm
It's
talking about
gone.
seeing.
I don't think it,
it didn't make the cut.
It was in my email, and that's why I thought about it and said, I gotta bring that up.
It's been gone.
Okay?
Just a little, okay, go ahead, sorry. Kathy's answering, I think.
If you would, can you just email that to me directly, nobody
I'll-
else copied on it?
Yep,
Maybe
I'll
you
look
find
through
it?
my email and see if I
Okay.
can find exactly where it was, but it'll alarm me.
All right, that'd be great.
All right, so your ad hoc committee that Gordy and Jean have created needs to be dealt with before this gets passed.
No, that says it may do it.
Oh,
It says may. But you haven't changed that committee, by the way.
yes.
John Jesso, I just thought of it, I talked to him the other day about golf.
6.2.
He's gonna be in Florida for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'd like to amend that team to drop him and add Ken Crawford.
Oh,
The ad hoc?
If Ken's willing, yeah, I mean,
I don't know why you're looking at me.
I will see
He said
him
he
tomorrow,
was.
I'll talk to
No,
him.
he said he was. He said
Would he?
was good. Yeah,
Okay.
he talked to me about it, he said he was.
Okay,
He
good.
said, yes,
That's
he's very willing and, yeah, wants to do that.
Okay,
His banking background will be helpful.
I saw that, Amy, it says
Did you?
may.
I was like, I read,
Okay,
and then I was like, well, then
so
after we
you'll
talk about it.
update it and get it back to us for next meeting.
Yes, I will.
Okay, at this time,
I'll keep looking.
I read it in what I was
we'll
emailing.
find it later. Let's go to the last item I think we have is public comments, so.
I do,
Huh?
if I may add one more business comment at the end. I don't know if you want to do public
Well,
comment.
let's do public comment
And then
then.
business, okay.
Yes.
I just have one thing to add.
Go.
Okay, I'm very shocked about the 189,000 to 342,000 there. I'd like to see a document that explains how that happened and does an analysis of the cost basis for that difference. I'm not sure how that works out with a construction bid as well. A lot of questions about that. Also, the Park and Recs, January 22nd meeting minutes were never posted on the web. Been waiting for those. I check back every few days.
I never received them.
Oh, okay, that's a concern. I had intended to make this comment before the meeting, so our community is known for big melts in the month of March. That should not be
Big
big,
what?
big melts, spring
Oh,
melts.
I thought you said melons.
Yeah, there you go. I wish. That should not be a surprise to anyone who lives here. The weather forecast says we're going to get a big warm-up starting on Saturday. Temps will climb above freezing by the weekend, rising to the mid-40s and 50s next weekend. But what we haven't had is an update from our township expert, Dr. Grobel. The DEQ and Dr. Grobel have both stated in public meetings that they are extremely concerned about what will occur during the spring melt at the VGT site. It is well past time for an update from Dr. Grobel. On February 6th, I sent an email asking for a study session so Dr. Grobel could give us an update. Our township supervisor denied the request, saying, "I don't believe we have a need to do this at this time, and I believe at a later time this might be needed, but not on the current horizon." Not on the current horizon. If not now, before the melt, then when? 96% of respondents in the community survey indicated that protecting the water quality of streams, watershed, and East Bay is a priority. Our master plan requires trustees to protect our water resources, and yet we have not had an update from our expert. He does not come here on his own. He needs to be invited by the township. ACME needs to stop reacting to things after the fact, especially in cases where there is advance warning. We have a chance to be proactive and get Dr. Grobel's opinion before the melt, but the days are rapidly slipping away. We all know the melt was coming, and yet here we are with the request for a study session denied. That sounds less like citizen-driven and more like citizens overridden. I encourage the trustees to put this item on the agenda for tonight. We should try and hold a study session next week. It should be at least 2 hours to allow for ample public questions and coverage of both soil erosion and stormwater issues. We ran out of time at the December session, and that was primarily a Horizon study session. Thank you.
What's your comment? Are you providing a copy of that for us?
Oh, I sure am.
And that's the only thing on the copy, just what you...
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Kathy, you had something else? Back
Yeah, I just wanted to add an update from the clerk's office that my deputy, Sharma Zollinger, who's been with Anthony Township for 13 years, retired as of February 27th. And I have hired a new deputy clerk as of February 20th. And her name is Angela for now, and I invite anybody to stop in and say hello to Angela and welcome her. And then there's an educational class that just came through the email. I don't know if anyone's interested. It's a board member basic, if anyone's interested. It's on March 19th from 9 to 11 a.m. at the governmental center, the government center, second floor.
in this Bob Clinton's annual FOIA meeting.
Yeah, Open Meetings Act, the FOIA, Ethics for Public Officers, Conflict of Interest Rules.
You went last year.
Yeah.
They let you out of it?
Well,
I do have the information.
just send it out there.
Make
Bobby.
sure all of your stuff's on the township server, not on your own personal server, all your emails.
Yeah, I don't know that they are. I use
Well,
two different
you
servers.
see what's going on in Washington these days with,
I have at it. You can come look, there's not anything on there.
That's what I sent it out there, by so if they are interested in going, they can go.
Oh,
I got the same thing. So.
okay, well, I brought the flyer with me today,
Oh, that's
if
fair.
anybody's interested. I will be out of town that week.
I think the thing I would be careful, there is new law, we'll be looking at that. I think Jeff will be probably going through some of that with
Oh,
us
yeah.
in the future, and that's important that we all go through it from our own perspective, because it is a little different. Bob does a great job, I've been to the same session, I like Bob, but I think since we know there is changes, it's probably important we have Jeff kind of go through some of those with us when we put this together.
when is he gonna have an open meeting? Seminar?
Judy?
You know,
March 19th.
March 19th?
March 19th from 9 to 11 a.m.
Jeff, will you go? I'll go if Jeff goes. We'll sit with one.
Wait,
I will
Already goes every
go, but I don't
year.
want to get
Okay,
into a
fire.
debate with you at the meeting. We'll take up all the time.
you would.
You went last year, why didn't you go again? Didn't it say
I
that?
don't, but somebody else does.
Just having a better definition.
Remember, attorneys disagree sometimes.
Oh, really? Every time, every
Just a
time.
better definition. Just 18 hours, just-
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, have a second?
Support.
Support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Damn it, I didn't get a chance to.